Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. This is the last episode we're recording in this room. It's been an amazing, wild ride. I had to record the very last episode with a guy who was on episode 21. He was on in episode 56 as well. We have him back, Justin Spears. Thank you for coming on the podcast for the 3P. Mark Carney is your leader.
If you are watching this and you watch CBC for anything other than pure entertainment, you are being propagandized. And again, I'm a progressive person. I'm not like CNN's fake, but Fox News is the truth. These news channels aren't even news. If you have a grandparent who voted in a way you didn't like, unless you had a conversation with them, shut up.
What I like the most when we talk, I never have such interesting disagreements.
I hate every class. I like the material. I'll be studying and learning all this stuff. I'm like, what does this even mean? Because I'm going chapter, photograph, photograph, and then I go to the exam, and I don't know what any of this is for.
Everyone's here. We're in our early 20s. We're at like damn near the peak of our physical capabilities. These grown men are taking notes on meditation science.
Like, I'm a grown man sitting in French class talking about inclusive language for non-binary people.
I want to talk about the role of the husband.
Okay.
What is a man's job in a family? Obviously, we have duties to your kids, but specifically in this case, I want to talk about a man's duties to his wife, to his woman. We both have relationship experience, and your role as a boyfriend is a practice round, less serious imitation of your role as a husband. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Am I giving too much? Am I giving not enough? What do you think about this? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. This is the last episode we're recording in this room, in this setup. It's been an amazing, wild ride. I had to record the very last episode with a guy who was on for episode 21. That's how far it dates back. He was on in episode 56 as well. We have him back. This might be, we were saying, around episode 110. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Spears, thank you for coming on the podcast for the 3P.
Of course, the 3P. So it's 21, 56,
and then
110?
110-ish, hopefully.
That's crazy. 20? I thought I'd be like... I didn't realize it's been this long. Like,
Yeah,
I've seen it through basically from the beginning
Absolutely.
to the end.
Absolutely. So it's been a
fun.
wild ride. We're going to talk about a few things today. As you see, our beautiful country here has elected Mark Carney to be the commander-in-chief for foreseeable future. Get your thoughts on that. I'll get your thoughts on UofT in general as a whole, because my experience is officially wrapped up. Mm-hmm. But you're almost done as well.
A little bit more.
Yep.
Yeah, I made a few too many mistakes academically.
A
few different paths, but almost done.
No worries. And so this is one of the very final episodes of VoV until I think there's going to inevitably be a rebrand of some sort.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. Hopefully it's some good stuff. But Mark Carney is your leader.
Yeah. Not my prime minister. No. Well, I have to ask you, are you surprised?
I cared so much more about the U.S. 2024 election than I did about this Canadian election. I don't know why.
The U.S. has global implications.
It does.
Canada, it depends, but not on the same scale. Like, especially with a Trump figure and the way the U.S. was headed. And, there was definitely a fork in the road there in the U.S. So I could see it being more important to some people, but I don't know. And this is pretty crazy.
For me, I wasn't very passionate about Pierre Poilievre. I didn't want Mark Carney, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I wasn't passionate about getting Pierre.
Sure, I feel that 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With Trump isn't even trying to lead our country. When he got shot,
I know. I felt the passion.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You feel so much more connected to just his messaging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pierre doesn't have that.
Yeah, that's actually a good place to start. Where do you think Pierre went wrong? What happened? Could he have prevented it? Do you think he did enough? I hear a lot of people saying that he, I don't want to say got lazy, but maybe kind of expected the win at the end there.
Yeah, well, you have to answer my question, though. Are you surprised or no?
Am I surprised? Okay, am I surprised that Mark Carney won?
Because I'm curious, because I want to know what everyone else thinks about this. I'm very curious.
I don't know. I'm confused. I'm confused.
Yeah.
Am I surprised? I want to answer your question.
It's hard. It's hard to give a one-word.
Yeah, I mean, I am.
There's so many dimensions to it.
I'm probably more surprised than not because I was
like
obviously
yesterday you weren't like it's a done deal.
No, I mean,
You're
like I was
what's gonna happen?
hoping
Yeah.
Polyev won, because even though there are still things about him that I wasn't completely sure of, it's
It's what you're trying to avoid.
it was better than Carney. It seemed
Yeah.
like, obviously. So
Not to everyone.
clearly not to everyone.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting graphs I've seen that I actually saw this morning. I want to pull those up about kind of what happened in Canada yesterday. But for you, are you surprised?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. When I went to the polling station yesterday, and I'll be open about it, I voted for Pierre, just so everyone knows. And I say this as a very progressive person. I voted for Pierre. And was I surprised? In some ways, yes. But you know what? When I went to the polling station, I think that's the correct term. Like we go to vote. There was a 95-year-old couple crawling through the door to go vote. And they're clear. And again, I'm not, regardless of what you voted or what you believe in, I'm not trying to, I respect everyone's viewpoints. Like, I'm not trying to make an enemy out of 50% of the country, anything like that. Like what happened in the US, like that was so polarizing. I think that, I'm not criticizing anyone, or anyone, anyone's character. But after seeing that, like this was clearly the first time that these people had left the house, like unassisted in years. And I'm not saying that in a mean way, but it was like, this was not an easy thing for them to do physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Like they were struggling to get to the booth to vote. And when I saw that, I knew it was over.
Yeah.
Because those people, for the most part, those like really, really like boomers, I guess that's the right term, like boomers, for the most part, especially at that age, like you're at home. You have your home, you have a house, you have your community, you have your friends, you probably don't live downtown, and you sit and you're used to the news being true to a certain extent. You know what I mean? That's what you're used to. You trust the news, you trust the information you're getting, and you have the TV on all day. And so when I saw that, I'm like, Carney will probably win because the messaging from CBC and all the mainstream media and the Trump derangement syndrome is just so potent with older people.
Absolutely.
And people who are heavily dependent on mainstream media.
Yeah.
Like the way the mainstream media portrays Trump. And listen, like, like Trump, disagree with Trump, like he's, any rational person can clearly see that there's this literal like mental illness around him.
Yeah.
And the amount of lie, like again, even if you disagree, there's so many things with him. I'm like, I don't agree with this. I don't think he should do this, whatever. But it's not like it was blown so out of proportion. Like everything with Trump. And like, what I find interesting though, and I don't think I've answered your question, but this is interesting. Did you see Trump's tweet yesterday?
No.
Yesterday morning?
Maybe I did actually.
It was basically a long tweet, and the summary of it was like, "Vote for me."
Yeah, for Canada. Yeah.
Vote for me.
I did read that.
And he's saying that, and that really got me thinking because originally, when the whole Carney Polyev thing was going on, and Trump started to do the whole 51st state, everything that really, a lot of support went towards Carney for that. Like that, that's basically why he won all the Trump stuff. And I don't think Trump knew that would be the effect of him and his like rhetoric and stuff. But he had to have known by yesterday what his actions and what his, kind of messaging regarding Canada had done to our election or what the effect it was having. And so for him to tweet that yesterday morning, he must he must be happy that Carney won. Like he was totally, I think it's clear that he wanted Carney to win.
That's interesting.
Because why would you tweet that? Like, there's no way that people around him aren't telling him, like, oh, by the way, you saying all this stuff is helping Carney. And so for him to tweet that, he has to have known, like, he has to know that was going to help Carney a lot.
And he didn't disrespect Carney the way he did with Trudeau. He didn't poke fun of Carney. He didn't say Governor Carney. He didn't. It was very.
Well, I don't know. Did he? Because I know they had a phone call and he was still doing the 51st state with Carney.
Was he?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. Like, that's what I don't know. Because Carney, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted Carney in. I don't know exactly what the reason would be.
The thing is, right, like, Carney, what I'm worried about with Carney, and, I will say this, I didn't read the whole book, his whole values, but I chat GPT the summary. I read the first few chapters, and, he's not totally off the mark. There's certain things that, there's overlapping values. Like, I think that, capitalism, can squash the soul and everything like that. And I agree, although you have to be careful criticizing capitalism because nothing else has worked. And capitalism has done amazing things for humanity. But, he makes a few good points. But I don't know. Like, I think my biggest worry is that he will use his leadership role to play out his ideological fantasies.
Yeah.
And screw the Canadian people. He's the elite. He's the genius. His ideology is right, and he's going to make decisions based on what he thinks is best for humanity.
Yes.
Not what's best for Canada or what Canada actually wants.
Exactly. And that's what's very interesting with this whole election. Before he obviously got elected last night, I've been thinking about this too. Clearly, you can tell he's very globalist. He's very,
oh my God, yeah.
He's very globally minded. And you said, what you said was perfect. He's going to do what he thinks is best for humanity, not necessarily what's best for Canada or what Canadians specifically want.
No, he's doing what's best for the World Economic Forum.
For the world. And for the World Economic Forum, but also for the world, I would say. And even if, let's say, the execution is awful and he doesn't actually pull off what he wants to do, what he wants to
play God, I think.
Well, that's very interesting. That's a hot take for sure. Yeah. The question in my mind is now, okay, what is wrong with globalism? Because I inherently, when I hear about it and when I see the effects that globalist-minded people have on real communities, it's like globalism is not the way. But if this is his dream, if he's like, there's nothing, this is also one of the topics I wanted to get into. There's no reason that someone who is born in a country like Canada deserves a better quality of life than someone who's born in a country like India or China.
They don't have a right to a better life.
Meaning that, the Canadian, the person born in Canada doesn't have that right. Like, what have they? No one. You don't do anything to deserve the privilege you have when you're born in a rich country.
Sure.
So with that in mind, I think what's going on with this mass immigration and with this century initiative and all of these things is, it feels like people, World Economic Forum people, are trying to balance the scales of injustice at birth, basically. So the question to me is like, okay, is that right?
That's one of the opinions why they're doing it.
100%. I'm sure there's a few others.
Yeah. I like that one though. I think that one's a fair assessment.
Okay, so we can get into the others if you want, but
no.
So one of them is he's trying to make the world a more fair place because people are born with advantages that they didn't earn. Sure. Is there what's wrong with that?
I think so. This is hard because I totally agree. If you're born in Afghanistan, like a woman born in Afghanistan and a woman born in Canada, it's just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
And they're going to have wildly different lives. And the Canadian woman is going to have the better life 99.99% of the time. But I have to figure out how to articulate this because, I want to be precise here. And I don't want to say just rubbish.
Yeah.
But I think the problem, I think in that assessment, you're completely right. You can't argue against it. That's just true. Life isn't fair. It sucks. And there's no other way around that. And I don't think, the Canadian woman has more rights because, or has the right to live in Canada, whatever. But what about the person, or what about the parents who worked hard and did everything to provide, an environment in a country, in a community to raise that woman born in Canada, right?
Yep.
Like my family, at least my mom's side, they've been here for a long time. In Canada terms, they were loyalists. They moved up from Montana, I think, into the prairies, and they were farmers. That's what they did until like my mom, basically. They're farmers. And, so what right do they have for their, do they have a right to have their offspring? If you invest, all this time and, you go to war, you farm, you contribute to your community, what right do those people have to be able to have children who can enjoy the fruits of their labor, right? Because I know a lot of people who, give their blood, sweat, and tears and half their income, more than half their income, in taxes to give back to their community. And so, and I'm maybe an unpopular opinion. I'm in favor of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with high taxes. But the problem is, in my opinion, the high taxes need to be reinvested into your community.
Yeah.
Or else why would you pay tax?
Yeah.
Like, right?
Yeah.
You can't, otherwise it's just robbery.
Yeah.
Might as well have someone come in your house and steal your stuff.
Yeah.
If your roads aren't paved, if the schools are disgusting and downtrodden, everything's just gross, why would you ever pay tax? Why would you not just leave? So for me, it's not as much of a rights thing. Like, you don't have, I don't think a Canadian woman has any more right to be born in Canada other than the parental thing, whatever. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. And I think the problem with globalism and how it relates to globalism, I don't know, for me, the big thing is, you have to look at where you want your society to go. And every different religions, different, countries, different belief systems all have different aims. That's fine. There's no problem with that. Some religious people would say, oh no, but my God's the true God, whatever. But, ignoring that, you have to set a goal. And when you bring, and this is on the topic of multiculturalism, when you bring people from different cultures together, sometimes that doesn't work. It doesn't work. Sometimes. If you're in a boat and you're trying to go from point A to point B, and you've got 3 people rowing, forward, and you've got 1 person rowing backward, you're not going to reach that goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's... No, I'll just leave it at that. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean...
I don't think there's any evidence, and this is might get me in trouble, but I have not seen firsthand or data or anything, any evidence whatsoever that multiculturalism and everything inherently is good.
Yeah.
It can work. Oh my gosh, it can work. Having different viewpoints and whatever, when you're working towards a common goal, that can work.
Yeah.
That it does work.
But we have no common goal.
You need a common goal.
Yeah.
And you can't have low trust society people living in a high trust society if you want to maintain a high trust society. That's just how it is.
That's completely true.
And I'm not trying to criticize any race, religion, anything. It's just a fact of life. If you're from this country and you're from this religion, but you come to a high trust society working towards this goal,
exactly.
Sure,
exactly.
No problem. No one I know in my personal life would have any problem with that ever.
That's a good point. Yeah, obviously, it makes you ask yourself, why do different countries have different legal systems?
Yeah.
Clearly because the people in there behave differently, meaning the punishment or the I guess the law enforcement or the incentives against breaking certain rules are different because the people there act differently.
It's different values,
obviously.
different goals. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you import a bunch of people from a place whose legal system and criminal code
and just the societal contracts.
Yeah, exactly. Is completely, I don't want to say opposite, but basically very different from the one to that compared to the place they're entering into. You're gonna have issues, obviously.
And I'm not even this isn't a criticism, by the way, of those cultures and values and whatever.
No.
I have no right, to impose my beliefs on them. I don't believe in that. There's some arguments for it. No, I don't really particularly agree with them. I think you should just let people do their thing, and there's niche cases where Afghanistan's a good one. How do you you look at the Taliban and everything. How do you approach that? Interventionism in that way, but that's a niche case. But I don't mean to criticize any of those cultures or anything, but you can't. I can never go there. I would never go there and impose my values and not follow their rules. Right. And I think that Canada, we're a great country and we're tolerant and empathetic, and those are virtues. But you can't be naive.
Yeah.
Or else dogmatic tolerance is not wise.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I think there's something in the Bible about like Eve's sin being, it's like relentless empathy of some sort. I wouldn't be one to talk about that, but I saw a clip the other day. It was pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I like what you said about the parents when we were talking about the Canadian girl born in Canada versus the Afghanistan girl, and this makes sense absolutely that obviously this mother and father busted their ass so that their child could receive these things, these blessings.
Yeah.
So if you really take that back, if you draw that line all the way back, we could say that about a lot. You could say that about health, and you could say that about wealth. You could say that about, basically is just a question, the stuff we're born with, what of it should we be, or should we feel entitled to, or realistically be entitled to? If my dad busted his ass, like you said, blood, sweat, and tears, and made a fortune off doing what he was doing, why shouldn't his son, who he perhaps was doing the whole thing for, reap the benefits of that?
Sure.
Now, in my case, my dad isn't, super wealthy or anything.
Yeah.
But even quality of life in Canada, this whole country, all the infrastructure was just built by people's parents, people's mothers and fathers doing things to make, our quarters more livable.
Yep.
So why should we, feel like we want to invite people who didn't necessarily contribute at all to building the stuff that we have?
Sure. Well, the way I see it is, it's hard because let's say, I buy a house and I want to give it to my kid. Entitled, like what are they entitled? It's like, what do you mean by entitled? If they, like, is there some divine force that gives them the right to have that house? No, absolutely not. Someone could come, shoot me, shoot them, take the house. It could happen. No one's going to stop that person, right? Or there's no force. There's no
nothing makes it impossible
for stopping it. Yeah. So it's like, do you, and I know that's a bit extreme, but a government could change their mind. People could change their mind. What if the dad says, no, you're not entitled to it. I want to give it away. I know people like that. They have their wealth. They want to donate to charity. They don't want to give it to their kids, Yeah. So everyone has different values when it comes to that. And so again, I think it comes down to, we have to decide as a society, or as individual, when it's appropriate, individuals, when it's appropriate, society, we have to decide what we want to give to our children and we want to give to others. And I think that there's a balance there. I don't think that, hoarding wealth is productive even for the individual hoarding it.
Yeah.
I know just greedy people who just want to take and keep. And I don't think that's particularly good for you, in a moral way or, in a productive in any way. Yep. So you have to find that balance. And, I have no problem truly with, people from out of country coming here and, reaping the benefits of what, my parents and maybe your parents and other people's parents have built. I genuinely don't have a problem with that, but there is a case, and I agree with this argument where there has to be some sort of preferential treatment to the people who built the country and their offspring and those people, because that's just how I think that's just the best way. Honestly, like if I knew that all my money was going to go to people who aren't my offspring, that's a problem for me. Maybe I have a high in-group, like whatever preference, to such an extreme, but I don't think very many people disagree with that fundamentally. It 100%. Might be hard to say when, in today's climate, when you extrapolate from that and talk about, more broad application of it to like people from different countries versus, just your family. Yeah. But I think there has to be some sort of, healthcare is a good example.
We'll dive into healthcare. We'll take a break for the camera. Okay. Cut out quick 5 minutes. We're on healthcare.
Healthcare. Just think about the things that you're saying. Yeah. On the topic of healthcare. on the topic of, globalism. I mean, globalism and mass migration are different, but, on the front of mass migration, a problem that I have is, and this is true. I'm not making this up. This is, first-hand account. I've seen it. I know people in it. Like, this isn't conspiracy or like hyperbole. And this is something actually for the viewer to think about. Let's say you have a grandmother, and I do, and she's had a number of illnesses, cancer and some other stuff, and she's fine, but she's worked her whole life. She's taken care of other kids, family, in the community. She's worked her whole life. Like, she's really contributed to the country and our society, and she's done all that. And she's older now. She's needed healthcare. Free healthcare, it's great, awesome. Love our healthcare system. I really do. I think it's great. How do you approach the fact that there's a waiting list for her and she can't get in as soon as she could because someone from a third world country has come here? Maybe they're, an Uber driver or construction worker or whatever. And then after a month or however long, a few months, they bring their grandmother over who's never paid any tax. They don't pay tax either. Maybe they're refugees, right? Who knows? And they haven't paid any tax. The grandmother hasn't paid any tax. And she comes here and she has a list of issues because, developing countries don't have the same healthcare. And, there's probably a lot of untreated things that have led to worse things worsening conditions. And then she comes here and she gets seen before my grandmother.
Yeah.
I think it's a heart transplant. And my grandmother doesn't get a heart transplant.
Yeah.
Because of this person. Listen, that's a hard thing to discuss, right? Yeah. That's hard. But that's something that people don't realize is going on, I don't think. When we talk about mass migration, you see these ridiculous migration numbers. And we're not building hospitals. We're not if you people criticize, and I've heard people say, no, Justin, any problems with healthcare, it's a provincial thing. It's provincial jurisdiction. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Bringing in 1 million people a year.
That's right.
Is not a provincial thing. Like, the system cannot. If you go to the waiting rooms. I know it's not accessible to the public, but ask someone who works in healthcare. Go to the ICU. Ask them to tell you what the ICU is like.
Yeah.
And what some of these patients are like.
Yeah.
It's actually, and I want to be careful here because I'm pretty passionate about this. Like, it really bugs me. But it's out of control what's happening in the healthcare system. Like, out of control. You wouldn't, the average person literally has no idea what's going on in the healthcare system. Yeah. And so, and it's hard. It's a hard reality to confront, right? But our system is completely being abused. 100%. And there's also, the reality that, as we talked about, different cultures and stuff, they come here, and I know of a few cases where people from, third world countries have come here and they have these huge families, and they come and they have they're so inbred that they have all these problems, heart problems, genetic issues, and, they'll see a doctor. And, it'll be, okay, I want this test done. I want this. You need a pacemaker. You should get this. We should do this, that, whatever. And the women in the family, the daughter, it'll be let's say a grandmother, a father, grandpa, father, mother, 2 boys and a girl. Test, okay, boy. The girl? No, we're not going to do testing. No, it's fine. No, we're not going to test the girl. No, we don't need treatment, whatever. And the doctor has to go, well, no, I have to recommend, they're like, no, we don't really care. So that's a lawsuit too.
Yeah.
So the doctor has to write, I highly recommend treatment. They might not do it, whatever. And then the girl doesn't get treated because they don't care.
Yeah.
And that's hard. I'm not trying to label every immigrant or that's 100% not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's just a comment on how a lot of people living in this beautiful, amazing society and community, we are naive to some of the darker things happening in the world.
Yep.
And I'm not saying we need to block people out. I'm not saying people can't come here, but there needs to be some sort of system where we help when we can, but the priority, you have to, like, when you're picking apples off an apple tree, you don't just cut the apple tree down. You can't just destroy your system, your country, and your apple tree because you want a few apples. Like, you want to give away some apples.
Yeah.
And that's something that people refuse to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like, especially, and you know what, with Carney winning, and again, I don't want to be too partisan. I try to be pretty neutral on things, but good luck. Good luck getting healthcare.
Yeah.
For the next 5 years.
Exactly.
Like good luck.
It's unreal. Politics can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to make it, as you want to make it be. And it seems to me, you talked about healthcare, you talk about housing as well. It seems to me that when you're building only 200,000, 250,000 new homes per year and bringing in 1.2, 1.5 million new people per year, that doesn't really add up, man. You can't do that.
And I mean, if there's infinite housing and infinite resources, I'd be willing to hear an argument for that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I mean, like, people are people, and, there's the whole, common goal thing, but, people are people, and I don't believe in hoarding, as I said earlier, but, you can't for the sake of society. And, I will say one thing, actually, that I think is pretty important. A lot of people this election, and just in politics and everything in general, we've become so divided, so polarized in so many ways, and it's actually just crazy to me. And so, like, one thing that people need to remember is, like, you are being propagandized on social media by your friends, but like the amount of people who can't defend their arguments at all, and myself included sometimes. I try to avoid it, but it's impossible not to be sometimes. Like, you are fed so much information just to make you upset and to divide people and hate each other and everything. Like, we are going to accomplish nothing as a society if we can't figure that out and just work towards a common goal. Yeah. Whether it's environment, social justice, you have to work together. And, I worry that as we bring in people who, again, it's not everyone, but, when you bring in people who don't agree with your values and your goals, it's not good. Yeah. It is not good.
100%. Yeah. I want to show you this graph.
Okay.
And it was different age demographics, top concerns.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, for the Canadian election.
It was the one where old people were just dealing with Trump.
Yes, exactly. I don't know.
Looking at that actually in the car.
Where did you see it?
I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like the stat. Or not stat. It's like, one of the things going around.
So this is, maybe I could pop it up on the screen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Most important factors when deciding vote for the 2025 Canadian election. 18 to 29, concerned with reducing your cost of living, of course. That was the top concern. Then you go, I'm gonna have to pop this up, but dealing with Donald Trump, the scale is like,
I've seen it. Yeah, you'll have to show it on screen.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But
60 and over. Do you think the boomers caused this liberal win?
Okay,
it's an interesting, because we talked about it yesterday. We talked about it last night. And you had an interesting take, which was very good. You talked about, I don't know if you want to share that story with your grandpa on the driveway or not, but that I thought was great. But yeah, man.
It's so hard. Okay. First off, a lot of people are like, boomers this. Listen, again, I'm glad you brought it up right now. You can't just be blaming everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you can't blame, even if an old person is wrong, let's say objectively, they just have the wrong facts. Let's just say, right? Not an ideological issue, they just have the wrong facts. So what? Like, they're not a bad person.
Yeah.
They don't hate you. I don't think very many Canadian, people over whatever the age is, 60
plus.
Yeah. I don't think anyone over 60 plus, any Canadian citizen over 60 plus, is going to vote screw my grandkid.
Yeah.
Yeah. This will show my 6-year-old kid. Yeah. I don't think that's at all what's happening. So these people are blaming boomers. I don't like that at all. I think that's deflecting from the real issue, and it's blaming. It's placing blame where it shouldn't be placed. The blame should be placed on like CBC.
Yeah.
How is that not like?
Yeah.
How CBC has any viewers? Like, okay, if you just quick thing, if you are watching this, and you watch CBC for anything other than pure entertainment, you need like you. This is a warning. You are being propagandized.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a progressive person. I don't. Like, I'm not like, CNN's fake, but Fox News is the truth, Like, these news channels aren't even news.
Yeah.
Especially CBC. Like, CBC is not news in any way. Like, maybe they report on kind of like the general idea, like, CBC, there's an election happening.
Yeah.
You can see kind of buzz where, an election is happening. Anything beyond that is 100%, it's beyond propaganda. Because propaganda has like almost like you'd think it has a serious political angle and a means to an end. It doesn't even have that. It's actually just fantasy. So, yeah, that's just my thing on CBC. But that's where the blame should be. The blame should be on, I think, just the mainstream media. And also people, anyway, if you have a grandparent who voted in a way you didn't like, unless you had a conversation with them, shut up.
Yep.
Like, shut up. Like, you didn't do anything. You didn't have a conversation with them. And I understand, like, and I think this is the example you wanted me to talk about. If you're 20, in your 20s or whatever, you're an idiot. And you don't have the life experience. You don't have the lived experience of your grandparents. And you should, or just old people in general. So you should respect that 100%. And some of them have differing values. And sometimes you just can't change that. And you just sometimes you gotta trust their wisdom. Like, I have a grandfather who grew up in farmer boy, and he's very wealthy now, and he's done very well for himself. And he lives in a nice neighborhood, but he sits. Is this? Whatever. He goes and he puts out food for raccoons and squirrels and like pests. And he goes into his garage with a gun, a glass of whiskey, and a cigar. And he sits there, and this is what he does for fun. He sits there, and when raccoons come to eat the food, he shoots them. And he sends pictures to us holding the raccoon. And when he grew up, that's what life was. You had these pests eating your crops and just causing problems, eating your grain and everything. And I look at that, I'm like, yo, you can't. It's illegal. You can't just shoot things. Like, you can't just do that.
Yeah.
But am I going to tell him? Am I going to lecture him on ethics?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he lived a much harder life than I have. He knows so many things that I don't, and so you have to find the balance. I think when you're talking to older people, especially your political views, because I'm not going to ever try to convince this guy otherwise.
Yeah.
Because. We agree on a lot of things, and we disagree on some things, and we have different information and stuff, but I'm not going to try to correct his values because that's not important. The most important thing is that we're a family, and that's that. We stick together. That's it.
Yeah.
The only thing is, if you have a grandparent who says, I want to make, life more affordable for you, so I'm going to vote for Carney. Then I think you should be saying, well, and again, I could be wrong about all this. I'm totally open to being wrong. It's just my assessment based on the information I have. And the thinking I've done, you could go to them and say, well, actually, this is what I believe, and I don't think it'll be better in this way if Carney wins. But this is a risk if Poilievre wins, and this is how I see it. And what do you think? And then you can talk about it, And so people who are complaining about boomers, it's like, have you talked to your grandparents?
Yeah.
Do you talk to people? I don't think the blame is to be put on them.
Yeah.
You should be blaming the actual educational institutions.
That's a fantastic start.
You should be blaming them because those people are reprehensible. You should be blaming CBC. Those people are reprehensible, not old Canadians who built the country.
Exactly.
That's not the case.
100%. And what frustrates me the most about that is, especially with university, this is a publicly funded institution. I posted this on the story, and I wasn't actually sure how I felt about it. Who runs more scams, the public sector or the private sector? I don't know. That's a good question because I obviously can think of public sector scams
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's a lot easier because no one's technically directly paying you.
Yeah.
There's a pool of money that Canadians willingly, put into
Yeah.
a pot, aka taxes.
Yeah.
And you can just go and reach in and take some of that if you're slick enough, and nobody really
Yeah.
knows because it's not anyone's, particular pot. It's not
Yeah.
my pot or your pot, but it's all of ours. It's a shared collective fund and pool of money. So it's easier to kind of maybe scam out of that. Private sector scams, I feel, are a little bit trickier. You have to be a little bit smarter because in most cases you're actually taking money from individuals.
Yeah.
Whether it's yes, exactly. Whether it's a zero, whether it's
Maybe there's some, but yeah, you get what I mean.
I know what you're saying. Whether it's calling a grandma saying, pretending you're the grandson, asking her to send you money because you're in trouble, or even obviously bigger scams like you got companies like BlackRock, Vanguard who can really manipulate markets or can put in certain incentives to get investments for companies, whether it be DEI or ESG or this sort of thing. Those are private sector scams.
Okay, well, what I'll say about that is scam is a hard word. You have to be careful using scam, I think. Because
Okay.
private sector, scam happens all the time. Yeah, it's scam.
Yeah.
But in the public sector, scam happens. Like, scamming happens. But, let's say, money going, money sent to develop, democracy in Pakistan. Is that a scam? Who knows? Like, who gets to decide that? I say, I think it'd be lovely. We have all this money. Why don't we send it to Pakistan or Afghanistan, try to help them figure out democracy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe, Afghanistan's a better example. You know what I mean? Like, let's go develop this. Some people would say it's a scam. Some people wouldn't. So that's my thing.
I'll tell you what I think about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, for me, the answer there is, okay, this is the best way taxes has been explained to me ever.
Mm.
There's a neighborhood, there's a community, they want a road built.
Yep.
No one person in the community is willing to pay for that road because let's say the road costs $1 million, for example. They're not going to get $1 million worth of value out of it. But if there's 10,000 people in that community, then they only have to put up, what was that, $100? $100 each to build that road, and they're obviously going to get way more than $100 worth of value.
Well, and if the government has the means to build one road, they can build more, and it's sometimes the government, you do need the government for a lot of things.
That's right. So the government comes in and says, okay, nobody here is agreeing on spending $1 million themselves to build this road. I'm going to make sure all 10,000 people get their $100 to me, Mr. Government. I will build the road. If you pay me $100 each, we'll have enough, and everyone will benefit from that. When it comes to something like sending money to Pakistan, I think a more relevant example is sending money to Ukraine would be, is there enough people willing to front up that divided sum of money to help Ukraine?
Exactly.
So everyone's willing to spend $100 to get a road, of course. Is everyone willing to spend $1,000 to help Ukraine?
That's why it's hard.
If the people on average aren't willing to spend that average amount, which is, I think I did the math. I don't know exactly how it works because not every Canadian citizen is a taxpayer. You have babies and shit. But in general, let's say it's around $600 to $2,000 per household, somewhere around there.
Sure.
Most of the households, I would argue, don't give a shit enough about Ukraine unless they've been convinced over the TV to care.
Okay,
Then you
this
have
is where I'm going to come in, though.
Multi-layered of the scam. This is what I consider a scam.
Yeah. I agree. There are some things, and again, I'm not trying to oppose the idea that, there isn't these scams and ideological issues happening, like 100%. But I think some people, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, there are some things where when you elect, it's like, what was the thing? It was, it was when Trump appointed... No. It was when Trump had Elon as an advisor for Doge. And people said, I didn't vote for Elon Musk.
Right.
It's like, but you didn't vote for Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK. You voted for Trump. On the ballot, there wasn't, his entire administration, all of his appointees. You voted for him. And so at a certain point, when you vote for someone in a democracy, I think you're voting for their judgment. Yeah. And so if the Canadian government deems it the best interest, again, this is another thing.
That's actually a good point.
responsibility does the government have to the world and to their people? I know in some cases there's an argument that, you know, if we send foreign aid here, we can get some, you know, we'll have presence in this geographic area, and we can influence this. Maybe we can get some resources, or maybe we can, you know, invest, whatever. And some of that's directly to benefit Canadians, and some of it's not. Some of it's just, you know, we're good people. Those are Canadian values, you know, and I have no problem with that inherently. I think that there's a balance you have to find. I'm not super anti or pro either one. I think it's a case by case scenario. So that's my opinion on it. There's 100% scams, but I think it's like some people complain, why are we sending money to Ukraine? First off, it's a complicated scenario. I'm not going to pretend like I know everything. There's crazy stuff happening on both sides. Crazy like insider stuff. I know it. It's just, I can't even comment on that specifically, but I'll use it as an example, just as an arbitrary, you know, country. If Trudeau decides to send the money there, and you voted for Trudeau, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
If it's kind of out of the blue, he says, "Oh, guess what? We're sending this money here." I don't know. It's hard because you trust their judgment. You're voting for their judgment and their decisions. Because It's like with the Trump thing, people were complaining we didn't vote for Elon. It's like, yeah, but you didn't vote for Kash Patel. You didn't vote for this. So what do you want? You want Trump to sit in the White House all alone?
Yeah.
Because you only voted for him.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's hard. It's
definitely interesting.
I see both sides for sure.
Yeah.
But you have to figure out but yes, there's scams. 100% there's scams. I'm not denying that.
I hear you. When you have a prime minister in I guess it would be the House of Commons or whatever the office is, the parliamentary, the parliament, sure. Yeah, you're obviously not just voting for him to sit there by himself and figure it all out. Yeah,
you're voting for his judgment. You're saying, I trust your judgment on how you want this country to proceed forward in society.
So then in the head of the leader, how does he judge things? What does the leader's judgment look like? Is it purely just Mark Carney saying, I'm in my head, I look at the world, obviously I'll get some advice from the people I trust, but this is how I want to run this country? Is it, let me understand where Canadian citizens' minds are at.
Different leaders do it differently.
Let me execute the will of the people.
Yeah.
That's going to be how I judge scenarios. I'm going to listen to what my citizens want.
That's, I think, what this election was.
So there's
to a certain degree.
But then there's also the idea of like, okay, will of the people is supposed to govern our country.
Yeah.
Now, part of me, and I think part of everyone also, though, wants a leader we can trust to make calls that maybe we don't understand.
For sure.
Is there sides of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. How? Yes. Like for me, 100%. Like if you vote for someone, like, listen, I know people, and I think 20 people like us don't understand it. Because we just sit around lounging, doing all day. We don't actually live in the real world. But I know like people in my family. They wake up at 4 a.m. They go to work. They come home at 7 p.m. They do more work. They go to bed at 11 p.m. Yeah, I don't really care. Like you can have your values, but I don't really want to know your opinion on Ukraine.
Yeah,
it means all to me in terms of a real political. Like, I'm not saying you're dumb or anything, but you've got a job. You're contributing to the world. Like. Like you
got a different role.
You have a different role. The leader has a role. He's not some god. He's not king. His role is to kind of let things trickle up, get the information, talk with other world leaders, and make decisions based on that. And I think some leaders go the more populist route and say, "Oh no, I'm really just going to listen to the people. We're going to go on in more that route." And I think I don't think that election was totally like that because I think there was a lot of people who. Podiev was talking about stuff that they were like, no, we don't want this. Like, we don't want that. So it wasn't full populist, and I would argue it wasn't really populist at all. But, like I think that's what my fear with Carney is.
Though. So how is it will of the people in that scenario? Because I'm not disagreeing with that structure or that setup.
How's it will of the people? Yeah.
Like of saying
if they get to make decisions.
You're working a job, shut the up about Ukraine. You don't know what's going on, man.
Yeah.
You might have great ideas.
Trips, yeah.
If you were in my seat, if you were my partner, if we were a duo running this country, you might have some fantastic opinions or ways to analyze the situation, but you don't know shit. So shut the hell up. You've been watching
Yeah.
TV and Instagram.
Exactly.
Now, when you trust the leader and when you trust the competence of the person who was voted in, I could get behind that. I could be like, yo, Trump, you got this, man. I'll let me stop making noise. I know I'm here. I'm on a podcast. My opinions are just noise. You're in the office. You know what to do. You might be stirring up the bowl. Maybe it looks a little bit crazy from down here.
I'm doing my job. Just make sure you're doing yours.
100%.
Yeah.
So I like that to a certain degree. But where is the will of the people? Why when they vote, what are they even voting on? If it's not having information they feel is adequate enough to have opinions about the issues that the president or prime minister is campaigning on.
It's hard.
So when Trump talks about, I'm going to get peace between Russia and Ukraine, we're going to have this deal, he's appeasing, or he's trying to speak to the opinions of people who aren't in the situation.
Yeah.
So will of the people, where does it come in? Is it just based on the leader acknowledging, you guys don't know shit about the situation, but unfortunately I need your votes to get into office, so I'm going to appeal to whatever knowledge you've been fed?
Well, I think that was the case. I think, if I'm understanding correctly, my brain's everywhere right now, but I think that's kind of the case with Poilievre and Trump. What I don't understand, and this is coming from someone who doesn't watch the news, who's pretty, I mean, I don't think Trump's a threat to democracy.
I don't
I
either.
think he's a threat to free speech.
No.
I mean, there's so many.
I don't even think he's a threat to Canada, honestly.
No. Now maybe.
You think now? In what way?
I think I said this earlier, but
We'll probably lose Alberta.
I think I've heard a lot of like legal talk about that, how they can't, but I'm like, I don't know, free will. But my thing is, I think worst case scenario with Poilievre, Trump is going to be an opponent.
To Carney?
No, just with Poilievre, if Poilievre won.
Oh, if Poilievre won.
Worst case scenario, he would have been an opponent.
Yeah.
Trump's like, I got to take care of my people. I need to get what's best for me.
Yeah.
We're going to do this to you. No hard feelings.
Yeah.
I just got to do what I do. It's like two people playing chess.
Yeah.
They're friends, but they're just opponents.
Yeah.
What I fear with Carney, again, I could be wrong. I'm 22. I fear, genuinely, I do fear this, is that Carney, and this is the main reason I did not vote for him, and I really did not want him to win. I'll be open about this. I fear that he wants to make an enemy of Trump. I think worst case scenario, Poilievre would have been
Enemy
an
versus
opponent.
competitor.
There's just someone who's like, Poilievre's like, I got to do my thing. You got to do yours.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we want to renegotiate the free trade. Maybe we want to negotiate this and that.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're just taking care of your people. I'm taking care of my people. Let's see what we can do. We're going to butt heads a bit. You know, we're not all buddy. But, you know, people also don't understand. Canada and the U.S., like, travel across the world. You want to tell me that we're so different? Go anywhere else in the world. We're the same country.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, hate to break it to you. But I worry that Carney being, you know, this globalist World Economic Forum, you know, utopian, you know, guy, I worry that he's going to make an enemy of Trump. And that's just not something you want to do.
I have an interesting opinion on this.
Okay.
It's exactly what we're talking about. And I was thinking about this in the scenario of Putin with the U.S.
Okay.
Does Putin prefer Biden or Trump? Like when that election was happening, or Kamala, would Putin genuinely rather have Kamala in there or Trump? Here's my thought, or let's just apply it to this. When you're talking about enemy versus opponent, to me, why I think, let's say, a conservative American president would want a conservative Canadian prime minister would be because at least they can play the same game. So
Yeah.
and
Okay.
and it's I don't necessarily want to apply it to, it's raining heavy,
Jesus.
to Carney and
Will it affect the mics? Like, is it going to cause background
maybe
noise?
I'll close that. Yeah.
I just don't want to have the second part of this, whatever. Am I going to get kicked out for saying all this?
You're chill, man. You're good.
I think I'm pretty good.
So this is these are the modern uses of conservative and liberal, because the definitions of those two words
Yeah, they're
really
completely
changed.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 50 years ago, liberal was a very respectable thing to be, you know?
Yeah.
Nowadays it's like it's
It's anti-progressive.
It's
in
wild.
my opinion. I don't know. Maybe people disagree with me. I think it's some of the ideal. Like I consider myself a left-leaning progressive person.
Yeah.
But I could not see myself like I just don't.
Not in 2025.
There's such a difference in what
Yeah.
I believe, and I'm not like. And this is coming from. I consider myself a progressive, like left-leaning person.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I just don't. I look at what's going on. I'm like I can't get behind this.
So, okay. So here's my thing.
Yeah.
Why would Putin want Trump in office instead of Biden? Use these names as imaginative characters.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking on I'm not trying to
Sure,
get
sure,
into
sure.
these leaders' heads.
Sure.
Okay. I'm just we're people know these people, and it's a simple analogy. It's an analogy more than anything.
Sure.
With Trump, even though he might be seen as closer to Putin in how they might deal with their own country's issues.
Sure.
Putin's a nationalist, Trump's
Sure.
a nationalist.
Sure.
They're both quite conservative, I would say.
They both think.
Yeah, they
they're
think
not-
the same.
Yeah.
Putin
Trump's not
sees
geriatric.
that and says, okay, I can play the same game with Trump.
Well, Trump's running the country.
And
Biden wasn't running the country.
Well, that's another thing to dive into.
And they wouldn't talk. If you listen to, whether or not I've listened to a bit of Jeffrey Sachs, I think
Yeah.
the name is. I don't know how reputable he is, and maybe it's complete disinformation. So do with what I say as you will. But I've heard, again, I could be wrong, but that the U.S.'s diplomatic approach to Russia was don't speak,
Yeah.
don't speak, antagonize.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Like push NATO closer, antagonize them. And I believe it.
Yeah.
I totally believe it. If you look at the U.S.'s track record, again, I could be wrong. I'm not saying this is fact. I'm simply saying this was an opinion that I heard.
Yeah.
And a take that I heard is that the U.S. was, that was their strategy.
100%.
And so why would you not, if you're Putin, why would you not want Trump? And not that Trump's like some Russian asset or any pro-Russia guy,
Yeah.
but like Putin's got mouths to feed. He's got a country to run. I see the argument for why Russia went in. I'm not defending it. I think it was wrong. They should not have done it. But I'm not trying to take a stance on that. But there's arguments that I've heard that I understand
Yeah.
the motivation a certain way.
I hear
And so if I was Putin, I would probably want Trump, who at least is going to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you. With that,
Yeah.
when you're
Sorry,
playing the same game as somebody,
Yeah.
it's easier to predict their moves as well.
Yep.
So when you have Trump and Polyev, let's say, they at least can negotiate on similar terms. Trump knows
You can collaborate.
you can collaborate. Exactly. Even though you're in competition, you're in
be
competition in the same game.
Well, when you play chess, you're collaborating.
Exactly. This is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Would you rather, if you're playing chess, you're a chess
Yeah.
player, who would you rather play? Another very skilled chess player or a checkers player?
Or someone who's just going to throw all the pieces off the board.
Well, when I'm talking about checkers player, I don't mean just they only play checkers. I mean they come to the board with checkers pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
What the are you supposed to do with that? This is exactly what I think is happening. And so look at Mark Carney. Mark Carney is big on net zero, okay? You can't even leverage Canadians' oil now if you're Trump trying to negotiate. You can't even say, yeah, we'll buy some of your natural gas. It's like they don't even want to sell you the natural gas.
Can I just jump in
How
real
the
quick?
are you supposed to play this game?
Yeah, just to build on that. My other, this is building on the fear of Carney. And I don't like to say fear because I don't like to see myself as a victim and, I'll figure it out. I'll be fine. But my concern, not fear. Fear is for the weak. My concern is that, Carney's he doesn't want to play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. He has his own ideology and he wants to play out the globalist fantasy and, experiment with, more multiculturalism, more net zero, more government overreach, more censorship, my concern is that he doesn't want to be an opponent he wants to be an enemy. And so that's what I don't understand about Trump wanting Carney in. And so I almost think that, and again, you don't know what Trump surprises me. He does these things where
He's unpredictable.
I'm like, what the hell? And again, maybe it's smart, but I look at these things, I'm like, what's the angle? As someone who's just interested in thought and what's going on in the world, I'm like, what's the angle? And I don't know the angle. I don't know why. I'm assuming he wanted Carney to win.
Yeah.
I don't know what the angle is because why would you want?
Yeah.
If I was Trump, I'd want someone who isn't just going to throw all the chess. You're just not going to flip over the chessboard
Yeah.
and make me an enemy. And that's why, I used to think up until this morning, up until he sent that tweet, actually, yesterday, I thought, no, Trump's not a threat. He's just tweeting. He's just, he threatened, he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, and threatened to nuke them.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real here. But why you would want Carney, that's where my concern is, where I'm like, maybe there is an angle where he does want Alberta or the West.
Yeah.
That's my concern, because I
That's
don't
actually pretty interesting. Yeah.
I don't see any other angle. And again, I haven't thought about this deeply. I haven't done my research on it, but that's, the most obvious thing to me right now, and the most kind of obvious. Not obvious, because not obvious, but the most clear answer that I could see right now is that maybe there is an angle to take Alberta and
That'd be pretty
in the
smart.
West.
That would be pretty smart.
But I can't figure it out. Why would you want why would you want someone who does not want? Like, I think Carney's going to try to punish Trump for going against this new. Like, look at what's happening in Europe.
Yeah.
Like the globalist unelected elites. They're playing a game. And some people agree with it. Some people think it's a right thing to do. I worry, because what we have is very fragile. Like, our society and democracy and freedoms and liberties, like that's a new thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a new thing, but it's not universal or guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's really fragile. And I think people don't realize that. Like, I think people, and I used to be like that. I used to think big government is perfect because it's one big business that gets to take care of people, and there's no greed, and you just pay your taxes, but then everything will be taken care of. So it's so good. And I used to think like that, but then you see the corruption, the lies, and the power and the ideological differences, and that's where I worry. But yeah, that's my I've said it like a million times, but that's my concern with Carney.
I hear you.
That he's going to try to punish Trump for going against the game, for not wanting to play his game.
Here's another. I'm going to give a last sort of example just to kind of nail this home, drill this home. Another thing, drill. Talking about Trump's slogan during the campaign, drill, baby, drill. Maybe he didn't want all of Canada. Maybe he just wanted Alberta. That's where all the oil is anyways. So that could be interesting. But here's
I can't see why you'd want Toronto.
Not Toronto. No, obviously. Just
Alberta. I look at it. Yeah, I can't see any other angle why you'd want any of the rest of Canada.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Unless it's build me. I don't know.
You have two. Why you want us. Yeah. You have two war generals. Okay. Let's just assume they're both God-fearing men who want good for their country.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
They're both trying to save their men's lives. They don't want death. They want victory.
Sure.
Obviously, death is a cost for that, but their main concern is to win with zero casualties, not just few casualties, but zero casualties.
Sure.
That's good. Obviously, you want to protect your men. If you're against another war general who has that same sort of mission, you can predict their moves. You're like, okay, they realistically could flank us from here, but if they do that, they'll lose 200. They'll lose 200 men, and we'll lose 100. Why would they want to do that?
Yeah.
It's bad for them. If you have a general on the other side who doesn't play by those rules and just wants maybe chaos or destruction, or they're not necessarily looking to protect their men, maybe they're really just looking to destroy everything that you have. You can't play that game.
That too, by the way.
There are people like that. So you have now something that you couldn't predict because you're assuming, why would they sacrifice 200 of theirs for 100 of ours? Yeah. They're not playing the same game as you. They just want to destroy you.
And there are people like just for the viewer, like that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, there are people out there who just want destruction, and who whatever belief they have or self-loathing, like there are just so people understand that.
Yeah.
Like that's something I learned, too late.
Yeah.
Like, there are people who just want destruction.
And that's a whole
other issue, though.
That's a whole conversation we could get into. If we do part 4, that'd be a fun one to dive into, how people get to that state. Because when you're born, obviously babies aren't like that. There's a whole bunch of life experiences you got to go through to genuinely just resent existence itself. So that would be a fun one to talk about. But another one that we can kind of shift into. One thing I will say is that in this world, like you said, where there's such polar opposites, it feels politically or in terms of any issue, really, the arguments and the debates that are most popular or that are most common feel like such a waste of time. Because what are we talking about? Not too long ago, a few years ago, we were talking about what is a man, what is a woman. What a waste.
We're still talking about that, surprisingly.
Yeah, I try not to. But what I like the most when we talk, I never have such interesting disagreements, because we don't need to waste time talking about what is a man, what is a woman, what is, kind of important when it comes to work. Why should we, dedicate ourselves to this life, not this life? I feel like when it comes to the simple bases, we're pretty aligned, but then we get to those more, fine-tuned details of like what's a public scam and this sort of thing, which I think is awesome. I feel like if someone's watching this and they also align with some of the basics that we agree on, those more, interesting conversations start to take place.
Well, it's good. It's necessary. You have to, if you go through life just agreeing with everyone, you're not thinking. Yeah. You should never ever see a politician, TV guy, influencer, whatever, that you agree with everything on.
That's right.
That's just unfathomable to me. Like when I see people that I really agree with on most things, I'm like, uh-oh. Yeah. I'm not thinking. I'm being brainwashed right now. And so I look for things that we disagree on, and there's no, it's so relieving. Yeah. When I find like smart, intelligent people that I agree with, whatever, when I find something we disagree on, I'm like, oh. Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. Like, I haven't been tricked.
They're being honest. Yeah. Because it's really easy to agree with people who aren't honest. Right. That's why you see it everywhere, in society. People want to be liked and feel part of the tribe and be part of everything, where they'll lie. Yeah. They don't want to be offensive, and not offensive in like a, hateful way, just offensive in a makes you uncomfortable way. Makes you, makes you question things a bit. Yeah. No one wants to do that. And so, if you find yourself agreeing with everyone, you're either they're lying or you're lying.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good message. Now, after this election, what's the path forward? I think it's always been the same. I think it's still work your ass off, try to make something of yourself. Don't let the political situation or the government in charge, affect what you do too much, or at least how you want your life to look. Yeah, you're not necessarily under their foot so much that they can stifle your entire life's progress. But if I saw a post, there's this account, I forget exactly what it's called, but they basically promote, traditional Canadian values and this sort of thing. And they were like, at the bottom of the post, they're talking about the election. They're like, we're never going to stop fighting for this country, blah, blah, blah. How are we supposed to change things after this election? What does change even look like? Because part of me is like, if this many people wanted another 4 or 5 years of the Liberals, what do I even have in common with everybody? Yeah. Like, do I want to stay here is a good question. Yeah. Is it even, can you save it anymore? Or is it just toast?
Well, I think step one is, I'm trying to think of how you would achieve it. It's so easy to say, but I'm trying to think of an avenue to achieve this. But there's just too, is it tribalism or is it just polarization? I don't know. There's something in there. Like, people are just so unwilling to talk and unwilling, they want to be part of the team. Like, you see it in the universities, you see it in the media. We're surrounded by this hyper, not even amazing. You see it online too, like just everywhere. Everyone's so like antagonistic and hateful and isolated, and they feel like there's such little like common ground, and you always assume everyone's out to get you. And especially in Toronto, it's crazy. People if you don't leave the city, you wouldn't believe it. Like even if you go a few provinces over, like I was in Calgary this summer, spending time in Calgary, it's like a different country. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Or you go to Europe, parts of Europe, like there's a sense of community, And I think that if there's any chance, and you know what, again, I say this, maybe Carney will be great, but maybe he will be. But, if you want people to at least be on the same, if you want to move towards a goal, you have to have people at least talking and feeling like they're part of one big group and one big community. And that used to be the flag, and that used to be, before, cars and planes and everything, that used to be your village. And there, and there, that used to be family. If family wasn't so vilified now, there'd be more like people. It's actually crazy to me, and I understand why. I'm not, I get why, and I get why it happens sometimes, but sometimes I can't believe that families vote differently.
I know.
Yeah. Listen, there's niche examples where I totally understand it. Like, I get it. People are different generations, different beliefs, different experiences. I get it. I'm not trying to criticize everyone, but it's something, you should.
It feels too common.
You should question, you should ask yourself, why is my family voting differently? There's a lot of, different examples of that, but I'll just say for the election, I'll use voting as an example. But if in the House, you're not even on the same team.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to say team because I don't like teams with politics. I don't think there should be teams for voters. I think you should just look at ideas every time and try to figure out what's going on. But if the House is voting differently, I don't like that. You should feel as one as a family. You should be discussing things. You should, you should have a solid identity when you go out into the world, and not be, your identity shouldn't be what team you're on or what you look like. It should just be, you should just be proud of who you are and talk to people and not see people as enemies, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place right now, but
here's the optimistic and pessimistic view of what I think about what you just said. Optimistically, this is something that basically I've been encouraging or trying to promote every episode of this podcast, basically, and just by doing the podcast itself, is talking to people.
Yeah.
And how much do we actually agree on compared to how much we feel we disagree on? You'd be surprised when you actually get to know somebody who you think you disagree with. It's like, oh, we're aligned on a lot of the same stuff. Maybe our thoughts on how to get there are different. Yeah. But at least I'm now, at ease knowing that there are liberals out there who actually have a very similar vision for Canada that I might.
Yeah. And you shouldn't, just to add on that, it's okay to disagree. I have friends like who are so different, and I interact with people who are so different. Yeah. And it doesn't I think you need to be honest, and there needs to be some overlapping values. Yeah. Like you need, you know what I mean? Like honesty and trust and everything like that. But it's a really small set of values that you really need, I think, to participate in a beautiful society like this. Yeah. And after that, who cares if they disagree? Who cares? Yeah. Be nice, be 100%. Kind, be and not just kind, be good. Yeah.
Not always an easy thing for people to do, but my pessimistic view is that as someone who likes to, think things through and especially discuss them with other people.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
In some issues, when you get to the extremity of an argument, it's like, oh, we're never agreeing on this at all. The first example for me that has ever happened with that was abortion. And this is something that I talked about more in high school. I think abortion is actually a male problem more than a female problem. We can get into that. That might be a hot take. But I was talking to my girlfriend at the time about abortion, and we basically just, we went through all the arguments. We got there, and basically the reason that we disagreed on all these things was essentially because we disagreed on what life was.
Yeah.
I think that the life begins at conception. You think that that's just a clump of meat. Yeah. So I don't think that you can't go past that. You can't argue. There's no more stats or debate that can happen after that point.
That's me with abortion.
Exactly.
That's the same. I've been trying to figure out the abortion thing for years. Yeah. And it just gets harder and harder.
And it's like, so what are we talking about? There's a group of people who believes life begins at conception because even if the biology is not in place yet.
There's a million ways to disprove each thing, though.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly. But it has all sorts of branches. I think the main thing, though, is that we're not going to come to an agreement on when life.
No, it's too hard. There's
when
so much
something's
evidence
life
in
and when something's not.
You can
life.
cherry pick evidence and data and analogies.
And beyond, it's almost beyond science. So even when you talk about that, exactly.
Yeah.
So when it came to a situation like that, it's like, okay, we're not agreeing. My pessimistic view on the future of Canada would be, how many people in this country do I have an opinion once that when we discuss, we'll realize that the extremity of our arguments are not aligned at all. My vision of Canada is this. Your vision of Canada is 100 million people, where most of them aren't the people that exist today or the people's kids today.
You kill off the people who built Canada.
Yeah. So
it's not a nation. That's a post-national.
Why would I want to live here? How could I feel even that I want to get to know my neighbors if they want this vision for this country?
That's the problem. Yeah. That's a huge problem we're facing. And it's crazy. We're getting so. I don't know. I think it's a Toronto issue. I don't understand it.
I think it is a Toronto issue.
It's a Toronto issue. I've never been.
The city's clamping on my mind.
It's
right now.
crazy.
As soon as I leave,
it's an absence of God.
All of this goes away.
I say this as a non-religious person. It's an absence of God. I don't like speaking on Christianity in any way because I don't know enough, and although I have a profound respect for it, as I think most people should.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the things about Christianity that people have problems with, that's more the church.
Yeah.
I think than Christianity, and Catholics and Protestants and Orthodox. There's a lot of argument there, but whatever. But yeah, I think it's just. But I think with the abortion thing, because I have friends who are pro-life and who are pro-super. It's like never, always, just up to birth, never. And I don't know. I'm like, ooh, but this is, how do you approach that? I think I've figured it out, kind of. I know where I stand on it now, a lot better. But the thing is, all the people that I talk to about this, it's like, when I'm discussing with them and I'm listening to them, even though we completely disagree on some fundamental things, it's like, are you being honest? Are you honestly trying to have this conversation? And are you respecting my viewpoint to the point where it should be respected? Can you give credit where credit is due and appreciate the differing value? And at least for abortion, I've come to that. I have friends who are, on both sides. I'm like, whatever, it is what it is. I think you come by it honestly. I might disagree with this, I might disagree with that, but it is what it is. But with the country, it's harder. Because with abortion, you can still live you can still coexist, even if you don't agree on abortion. Who cares, right? It's not that big of a deal. Maybe between a couple, it's more important. But I don't really care what my guy friend, you know what I mean? It's not, if he's not, I'm not going to, if he refuses to abort a kid, I'm not going to be like, dude, come on, man. You're not, that's not what my team does. You know what I mean? I don't believe in that. But with the direction of a country, it's, I'm gonna have to think about that a lot more. I've been thinking about it recently. It's not a nice thing to think about.
No, it's not at all.
I don't know. But the thing is, okay, again, I said this about the U.S., but Canadians, even though we voted differently, and you might think that they're so polar opposite. That's, I think, part of the problem. I think that most Canadians fall within a certain range. I don't think there's very many Canadians who voted for Carney who even know what the Century Initiative is.
Yeah.
I believe that. I have to believe that. I have to. There's no choice. But you know what I mean?
I think you're right.
I can't imagine.
I think
there's no logic.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to be so far gone.
I think you're right.
That it's like, so I think that we think that we're more polarized than we are. Although there is an issue of, okay, I don't think there's a problem of actual beliefs. I don't think people are on opposite sides of the spectrum in beliefs. But I think there's that perception for sure amongst individuals. I think every single person thinks that other people are on the other team or liars or corrupt or whatever. So I think that there's a perception that we're so far apart. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. We can't communicate telepathically, right? So our relationships with others are completely dependent on our perception of others, right? And so I think that's a problem. I think it's not a polarization issue when it comes to beliefs. I think it's a very fringe. Again, that's a problem with who we've elected. I don't think the person we've elected is in any way, again, I could be wrong, in any way going to act in the best interest of Canadians, what Canadians want. But yeah, there's definitely a problem of how we feel about polarizing beliefs.
So if there's...
And I don't know how to fix that because it's a real problem. Hey, can I give you a quick example of what happened to me the other day? I was like telling my deeply just sad interactions I have with people. I was on campus the other day, and I parked my car, and I was going to go to Robarts. I was just parked on, is it Huron? What's the street parallel on the west side of St. George? Back of MP, back of I think it's Huron.
I forget.
I'll say Huron, whatever. People, it's either Harbord or Huron. And I parked the car, and it's like a wide road. It's not like the widest, but it's pretty wide. And I opened the door to get out, and I'm like, oh, wait, I have to put stuff in my bag. So I'm grabbing stuff. And I was taking a little longer than I would have liked, but it is what it is. And I hear ding, 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 way back. I'm like, I'm just going to surely this isn't happening. So ding, 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 ding. And then it's right beside me. My door's right beside me. Ding, 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 the bell. I'm like, dude, who the hell is dinging at me? Why am I getting dinged at? So I look and I'm like, you can go. I'm like, no, if you're not going to interact with me, if I'm a ding to you, you can just say, excuse me. Yeah. Like a normal, rational, homogenous society person just says, oh, excuse me. And you just move on with your day. And sure, I'll accept I shouldn't have had the door all the way open. Yeah. It's blocking the road. Well, sure, I'll accept that, If they said excuse me, I would have said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I would have felt bad. Like, oh, I'm not being polite.
Yes.
I'm getting dinged at.
Yeah.
I'm not a dog.
Yeah.
Why am I getting dinged? So I look and I said, man, you can go around. Like, if we're doing this, you can go around. And and to my surprise, this is what really worried me about the direction we're going in. This guy was like a 60-year-old white guy. The 60, maybe not 50, maybe 50. But that, 40 to 60-year-old white guys. Yeah. They're the rocks of society. You cannot have a functioning society if the 40 to 60-year-old white guys are just like children, acting like children having a temper tantrum. Yeah. What? Yeah. Everywhere you go where it's serious, it's predominantly 40 to 60-year-old white guys. Yeah. I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? Like, there's women, whatever, but, those feel like pilots, surgeons, like, you know what I mean? It's like when, high, you know what I mean? So anyway, and he's like, you're in the, you shut your door or whatever. I'm like, dude, just go around. Like, I'm like, just go around, man. And he's like, you're blocking the bike lane. I said, there's no bike lane. And he's like, yelling at me, doing this. I said, dude, are we really doing this right now? Like, you're sitting in front. I'm just like, it's not a big deal. And if I was actually blocking the bike lane, I think it's pathetic for you to make yourself just make a scene. But I would get it. I would be like, again, I'm in the wrong. I would shut the door. But in the middle of the road, there's no bike lane. Like, there's no, and there's no traffic. You could just go around. Yeah. It's a wide road. Yeah. You're looking for conflict. Yeah. You're a grown man and you're looking to do this with me. So I said, really, man, are we doing this? Are we really going to do this? Yeah. It was either, are we really going to do this or is this really happening right now? Yeah. Something along those lines. And he, I changed my mind. We're fucked. Canada's gone. No, Toronto's gone. But so he grabs my door. Yeah. He grabs my car door. This is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen, I think. I actually think this is probably the most pathetic thing I've seen from a grown man. He's shaking the door, trying to close it. He's on his bike, so he's falling over his bike. He's trying to get past, shut my door and move past, yelling at me, shut your door, asshole. Grabbing my door. And I just put my foot, I was just grabbing it, and I put my foot just to block the door. I didn't want to get my leg, whatever. I'm just leg chopped off. So I just held it open, and he's falling off his bike, yelling, "Shut your door, asshole!" And I'm sitting there I wasn't trying to square up or anything. I wasn't, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to. I'm just sitting there what's going on?
Yeah.
And then he bikes off.
Your camera's good.
Like it was good. Yeah. Anyway, that was it. And like, so if that's happening, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Something's going way wrong.
Yeah.
If this is like an interaction that I'm having.
Yeah.
With like a normal, otherwise I'm assuming rational person. Like, again, nothing against him.
100%.
I'm sure he's a father. I'm sure he's I don't know if he's old enough. Yeah, he might be a grandparent. I'm sure he's a great grandparent. I'm sure he's a loving, amazing guy.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. I'm assuming you won't watch this, but if you remember me and you're watching it, like, I've got nothing. Like, it's totally good. I don't mind.
Yeah.
But the fact, and I'm guilty of it too. I do the same thing sometimes. I get a little riled up. But if that's what's going on, like, you just can't, like, something you need change. Like, that can't be happening.
100%. Back from an interesting break.
Yeah.
So just to kind of finish what we were talking about, we were talking about people in the city, people in towns. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but basically I talked about how I think that, people who live in big cities put less value overall on average on human life because they encounter it so often. You walk every day down the street and you see 2,000 people versus the guy who lives in a small town who only sees maybe 20 people. And every interaction he has with other people is a meaningful interaction. So he has a better valuation of human life versus the person who lives in the city
I think
naturally.
it's also younger people too. Like, I think you're completely right, but I also think younger people also value
human life.
I think it's social media and digital. Like, have you ever seen an older person, like your average older person, like interact with another older person?
No.
Really? Like, maybe this is just unique to me, but whenever I see like my grandparent, like my grandma, interact with other older people, I'm like cringing. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
In what way?
Well, she's just like, let me think of an example. Like, she'll just interact. Like, we'll be at like a restaurant.
Oh, like, and be very open?
She'll start chatting or like, my grandkid, whatever. I'm like, you don't know this woman. You don't know this person. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's cringe. Like, I cringe. But I'm like, you know what? This must be such a better way of living.
Yeah, I agree.
We feel so much more connected to people, and you're 100%. All together. And I mean, she grew up in this. Like, I think when she was younger, she didn't. But she lives in the like Mississauga and everything. And she was working. Like, she's used to being around a lot of people. But just the sense of like community with your peers, that's something I envy. Like, I personally, based on my experience, I find it so cringe. Not like logically, but like I'm like, you naturally, don't know, like, what are you doing? I would never do that. Like it's crazy, and they're so open, and they're always, the other person's always receptive. Yeah, and they're usually worse. Yeah. They're usually, pulling out Facebook. You don't know this person.
It is a better way to live.
It's 100% a better way to live, and you don't see that with young people.
I think that's what we're searching for. I think when we talk about the destruction and the downfall of our country that is impending, what we're looking for is to get that back.
You need that back. Because you can't, regardless of what, climate change, this, that, so you need to at least have everyone talking. Yeah. And, you at least have to know what your neighbor's feeling.
Have something in common.
And what people outside the city feel. There has to be more community. Yeah. And we are losing that on a daily basis. And I think it's mass migration. I think it's social media. I think it's the news. Yeah. No, sorry. What would I call it? Not the news. The fantasy diluted ideological cancer channel is like destroying us as a not a country, but just as a community, like as communities. Yeah.
I hope there's I'm still playing music. It's my bad.
No, that's okay. I was kind of vibing with it.
Yeah, me too. I don't think it'd be good for the audio. Sorry about that. But anyways, I think that, what was I going to say? I was going to talk about, it doesn't matter. I was more just going to go into how do people, like me and you, because it'd be easy to kind of perhaps have that community when, we have as much in common as we do. And you can't obviously expect that of an entire country, but it has to be a little bit more. Anyways, what I want to get into, because this is the last episode, I'm recording not only in this room, but at UofT likely. As a student, about just the UofT experience in general. Sure. And how it's been for you. And I want you to kind of put yourself in my shoes as much as you can of, kind of a wrap up of your experience. Of course, your experience isn't over yet, But
It's basically,
you're
I've
there.
been through it, I'm
You've been through
finishing
it.
up. Yeah.
And exactly. So
My experience?
how has university been, and what do you think is to come for traditional education, U of T specifically, maybe?
My experience. I don't want to get it wrong. I want to say something that I won't regret saying later.
Yes.
I don't want to add to it or want to add to it. My experience with university has been, actually, you know what? Okay, I know what I'll say. It's been good. There's been a lot of pains. There's been a lot of frustrations. There's been a lot of just, hatred and all. There's been every emotion, honestly. But I was talking to my mom about this, and she said, you know what? For some people, and for most people actually, university is just to find out about yourself. It can be for a degree, it can be to get a job, whatever, but sometimes you just got to go, be around different people, learn different things, be independent, and you just have to find yourself. And I think I'm finding myself every day, and it changes. But I think university has been good for that. I think it has the format and the way I went about it, or the way it was my interaction with it, the way I wanted it to go. No. I would have much preferred if, I just loved it and every day was easy, and not easy, but every day I felt like I was working towards something I wanted to work towards, and I don't feel that. I'll learn entire courses in a day. Like I will literally skip class the entire semester, not go to a single class. I'll learn an entire course in 2 days. I'll go to the exam, pass it, go home, figure out what courses are like available to take next semester. I'm like, okay, I need this one. Okay. Never go to it. Like that's literally like people think I'm joking. It's like a chore.
Yeah.
And that really sucks because when I started, it wasn't like that.
I can relate to that.
I just feel so isolated. I have not made very many friends. I don't think it works for me. It's not a means to an end for me. I've decided I was originally going to work it, do some research. Like I do, for those of you who don't know, I do physics and math, and now a French minor. But at the beginning it was like I'm gonna do research, or I'm gonna go, maybe I'll work, SpaceX or NASA, and that was the very beginning. And I loved it. I did so well in high school. My high school physics teacher was the reason I went into physics. He was like pushing. He's like, you've got a mind for it. It's so you have the curiosity and the ability to think and ask questions. Like you'd be perfect for it. I was like, oh, awesome. So I did it. And I don't know. It just slowly became. I don't think it was physics or math specifically. I think it was just the format. I felt like I don't know if I'm pronouncing it infantilized.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it? Infantilized?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound right. Infantilized. But I felt like a child. Like every day I'm like, this is not, I'm just working. Like what's next? Okay, I get a grade. What next? Okay, pass the course. What next? Degree. What next?
Yeah.
Who knows? Research. But I'm like, then what? What about my family? What about my peace of mind? What about my understanding of the world? Am I going to travel? Am I going to be able to provide for my kids? Am I going to be wise? Am I going to be kind?
Yeah.
Am I going to be good? Am I going to be a leaf in the wind to the environment around me?
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that in class. And I understand why. It's not a criticism. You're there to learn, today's exam was physics of the earth. That's what it was. I have no problem with that. That's what my task was. But I don't know, just the goal. Everyone's walking on this path beside me in my classes and everything, but where they are going to go, I don't see myself going. Yeah. And so that's been really hard for me. Truly, like it's been such a mental battle trying to figure that out because I hate every class. Yeah. I like the material. I'm always, it's funny because I'll be studying and learning all this stuff. I'm like, what does this even mean? Because I'm going chapter, photograph, photograph, learning. How do I solve this? How do I, what is this integral for? Oh, okay. Oh, I have to remember how to do ODEs from this class. I've totally forgot because, whatever. I'm doing it. And then I go to the exam. And I don't know what any of this is for.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for the variables and the words to put. And then I'll see a question. It'll be like, okay, you have a mountain, this density, whatever, or it'll be some problem, or what happens when this tectonic plate thing does this, or whatever. I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like I wish I could, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is right. But I'm like, I wish I knew this perfectly, like I did, in first and second year.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wish. I knew it off the back of my head because that was so fun, like understanding the world in that way.
Yeah.
But I think it was just naive. Like I think I was young and I didn't know what to do. I still am, but that's why I chose physics. It was just like I just want to know. I want to be wise. I want to be intelligent. I want to know where I'm going, and not know where I'm going, but I want to know things.
Yeah.
I'm in the pursuit of truth.
Absolutely.
And that's what physics was at the beginning, but then, you can keep going with physics, but eventually you realize like there's so much we don't know. You're never going to reach the end. You're never going to know everything about physics, and there's so much more to life than physics.
Yeah.
I used to be so just like whatever, blank to everything, just study, understand the universe, go to bed, don't talk to anyone. But then you're like, no, you gotta. There's more. There's so much. Life is so rich.
Yeah.
And so that's been my experience. But
Fantastic.
I'd say good. I've learned a lot about myself. I'm wiser than I think I would have been if I didn't go to university. I'm better at problem solving, better at thinking. So that's my goal. So I guess in a lot of ways, in some ways I've gained a lot from it, but in some ways I feel like, I don't know.
Fantastic breakdown. I'm going to jump off a lot of the stuff that you talked about. Because I
went on there, my bad.
I'll quickly spill my story of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Fourth year economics major. Stats and psychology minor.
Sure.
I'm graduating this year. Obviously, for me, elementary school, high school, I was always a very strong student. I was always not only, results-wise with grades and whatnot, but also personally, I was very dedicated to school. I cared about doing well, not only for my family, but for myself as well. Like I don't know, I wanted to succeed. And I still have that drive to want to succeed right now. It's in a completely different realm than school because school has proven to be unsatisfying in the end.
Yeah,
so
you're not succeeding for you when you're in school. Sometimes it feels like you're succeeding for a mark or for someone else's.
And the mark has proven to be a very empty measure of success.
Yeah.
When you're young, I think when you're young, and this is also debatable, but at least from my experience, for my personality type or my character, for me, grades felt like a good measure of success as a kid.
Fair.
Now, there are definitely kids who, let's say, are more ADHD or more creative or prefer, let's say, they want to do music or even
I get what you mean. I get what you mean for sure.
Even some kid who wants to play video games for a career and his kid is like, that's not, or his teacher's like, that's not a real job. And then he goes and becomes ninja. Who cares? There's definitely that group. For me, I was good at school. I thought school was important, and it was. It literally was
structure,
important.
It's structure. It's
absolutely
reliable. Yeah.
So clearly, I was good enough in elementary school and high school to get into UofT in the first place. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't look back on as well. Me and you right now, we're talking about how whatever university isn't what we thought it was. GPA isn't as important as we thought it was. And some students who are still devoted or dedicated to this path that, I'm sure we were once very dedicated to, think, oh, that's cope. They are saying that because they just can't keep up with the pace.
For sure.
But it's it can't be true because we were good enough to get here. We were good enough to get here.
The pacing, but it's like, no, actually, I learned the entire course in a day.
The
pace is fine.
Exactly.
Although, listen, I'm not an ideal student. I get terrible grades. I'll admit that. It's just, but I get what you mean. Yeah, it's definitely a little deeper than that.
100%. Because we were good enough to get in. So clearly, something happened for me.
Yeah.
My grades in first year were pretty good. At the end of my first semester at UofT, I had a 3.94 GPA. Fantastic. By the end of the first year, it went to 3.6 something. Yeah. By the end of first year, I was like, okay. And once again, I had a very successful first year. And I realized, wait, is this it? This is university. It felt like high school 2.0 to me.
Yeah.
And the reason, once again, this is the last episode I'm recording here, and people might think, really, you're gonna, speak negatively.
You're gonna trash it at the end.
Yeah, you're gonna trash it at the end. Like, come on, like you can be better than that. But I think for me, it's because the results didn't match the expectations, and maybe you could say my expectations were off. But I think having expectations that you were gonna learn in a different way than you were learning in high school is a completely reasonable expectation, or at least the way success is measured in university isn't how it's measured in high school, but actually it really is the same. You get grades, you do projects, you do tests, you
when does
learn
that
the
end?
material, you read.
Yeah.
It's like, this is high school again. I thought I was expecting something different.
Wait till you get a job.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Is this high school?
Yeah. So
Most
that was disappointing. That was disappointing
Yeah.
for me. So second year, third year, fourth year, I haven't obviously gotten all my grades back for fourth year, but I can tell you, I'm not graduating with a 3.9 or 3.6 GPA. It's dropped off a little bit. And it's because I've abandoned this idea that success is measured by grades. I don't believe it is. I've obviously been focusing on a lot of other things. Because for you talked about I'm going to bounce off two things you said. Infantilization is a huge relatable thing I felt. We're here. How old are we? You're 22. I'm 21.
I'm a grown man.
We're grown men in this institution, basically being like cucking to this institution for fake grades on a paper.
Yeah.
We should be helping our country doing real shit.
Yeah.
Not going to positive psychology class and jacking off to Maslow's actually a pretty important thing that you should probably learn. But there's a bunch of other,
there's a bunch of garbage.
You see the only thing I remember is something that's actually important. I think Maslow's hierarchy
No,
of
there's
needs,
a lot of garbage.
That's
There's
a real
lot of
thing
garbage,
for sure. But there's a bunch of garbage that I've decided, you know what, this is not useful to me. Why am I wasting my time here? This is also why you go back in time. University was a not very common thing. Eventually it became more common because we saw, oh wow, there's actually some great things that can come out of university. I think that's because back then only 10% went. You had a very prestigious, let's say, elite class.
When you went to go do something.
Exactly.
Medicine, doctor, nurse. It wasn't like, I'm not even going to go to the major.
Into the
Don't, I'm not, like,
I hear you.
But like, there's some majors it's like, yo, come on.
Yeah.
Why are you wasting taxpayer dollars?
Yeah.
Why are you But you know what I will say just really quickly, because I don't want to, I think everyone should be educated. Mm-hmm. Even if you're like a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. I think if you're a stay-at-home mom, there's probably no more important person to have educated. But
that's a good point.
Everyone should be educated. But I think the obsession with just churning out GPA, like it should be more, you should either, like I think there's definitely merit in being like, you go med school, doctor, done. Undergrad, lawyer, law school, lawyer, done. Like that's, there's definitely value in that, and I agree with that. But I think some people, you should just get educated, and you should be able to take what you want. It should be more interactive, and it shouldn't, like, especially in 2025, like there's no way we're doing PowerPoints.
Yep.
There's no way. It's just
next.
What the hell?
I'm happy we're talking about this because it is insane. I walk into a meditation class at 21 years old. Yeah. Able-bodied. All right, we're decently in shape. We're fit. I see John taking notes on meditation. I'm like, John, why the are you here? Go build a house. We need houses to build to fulfill the mass immigration crisis. We need to actually build some places. We need buildings. What are we doing sitting around here? Yeah. Emma, why are you taking notes on meditation? You should be pregnant at this point. Yeah. What's happening? So this is actually, I've never actually really, I don't want to say not vocalized in public, but even like said this out loud. I haven't talked about this with anybody, but I'm realizing now I'm in classes. I'm in meditation class. I'm in positive psychology class. I'm in, you're in French, and I'm just looking around. Everyone's here. We're in our early 20s. We're at like damn near the peak of our physical capabilities. These grown men are taking notes on meditation science when we should be instead. I'd be at better use building a damn house. I'd be at use using my hands, which I'm going to do this summer. Emma would be better use creating more Canadians that we need.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. Like it's like no. Like it's actually just insane. I'm a grown man sitting in French class talking about inclusive language for non-binary people. Listen, be whatever you want. I don't care. Like whatever. Like we need to get over this. We need to, because I think it's such a fringe minority of people who like actually care. Like I'm a grown adult man. I don't care what you're doing in the bedroom. I don't care. Why am I a grown man learning an inclusive language for non-binary people in my French class? No, it's not that I'm learning. I have to discuss it with a bunch of morons who can't speak French. So let me get this straight. Grown adult man in class talking about inclusive language for non-binary people in a language, in a group, in a language that people don't speak. I swear to God, this happened to me. I got up and left. I left the classroom. I said, I'm not doing this. I was like, I know I was in a good mood, whatever, but I'm not wasting my time. Like it was so insulting to me that we had to do this. And again, I'm not trying to critique like the substance. You know, that's a whole other discussion. But it's like, man, like this could have taken half the amount of time. Like if we were just, locked in, we weren't doing this. Like we're learning, it should be like history, philosophy, like, you know what I mean? I don't know. The education system, there's so much room for improvement, I think. I don't know. I haven't figured out how to fix it.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. We waste so much time.
100%.
It's not like, and then, I don't know, like we're on the verge of like population collapse. If you look at like domestic, like, Japan, South Korea, I think the US, Canada, like basically every good country is like on the verge of population collapse. For like natural born citizens. And that's a huge problem. And it's like, and that's why it's a problem. I don't like speaking on it as a man, but it's a problem for women. Like, I don't think it's a secret that women's biological, for the most part, desire is to have children and be a mother. And that's pretty natural.
Super natural.
And so what is going on in society where women are now not having children? Like, do you know, like that, people don't talk about that. That's crazy. Yeah. Like we have failed. Like we have, as a society, have failed women and families or whatever they call it. Like women specifically. Like if they're not having children. Yeah. That's the biggest. Like that should be like if I was running for prime minister. I want to know what, just for fun. We were talking about the election. I want to know what you would do. But if I was running for prime minister tomorrow, my entire platform would be, I don't know if it's neo-feminism, but it would just be like this new brand of feminism. Yeah. Like, enough is enough. Like we are going to protect women. If you're a criminal, you will be like you will be broadcast. You'll be hanged from like the CN Tower. Yeah. With your head or something. Like there'll be no crime. There'll be absolutely no crime. Women will be safe when they walk out of their house. Like there should be no stress. Like I don't think women can get pregnant if they're just highly stressed. Like that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Like I feel like from a biological standpoint, like if women are super stressed and all that, it wouldn't make sense for them to be able to get pregnant. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you become very vulnerable when you're pregnant and everything. So why, I'm pretty sure I'm right. That makes a lot of biological sense. But it's like, women should feel safe. Women should feel empowered in their feminine traits. Again, I'm going to get in trouble for this. But it's like, why do we measure a woman's happiness or success by masculine standards? Yeah. Like your income. Oh, how are you doing? What job? Like, why is it always women? What job are you working? Yeah. Why are you doing this? It's not like, how's your family or how's your community? Like, you know what I mean? And there's going to be women who don't. Like, a lot of the women in my family aren't like that. Yeah. They exude some of those traits, but, they're very successful in their work careers and they work nonstop. And that should be encouraged. Yeah. If that's for you, it should every avenue to do that. But it's like, I don't know. There's something so fundamentally wrong, I think, with society if women aren't having children.
And I think, I talked about this with Paul Panichet. This was episode 90. Okay. It was kind of a technical difficulty episode, but I was basically saying how it's interesting to look at, because the whole reason that there's this push for women to focus more on their careers is because we're I don't want to say pandering to the exception, but we're trying to make the exception the mainstream. And the exception is very real. There are definitely women. Yeah,
there's exceptional working women
Yeah, and there's an episode I recorded a couple days ago that hasn't released yet. It's with Tina. Her name's Tina Simpson. I was talking to her. Sure. She's a very driven, ambitious person. She was telling me about her goals, what she's studying. I think she's a second year, and she's studying materials engineering. So not a common major for women to have.
Women like that are
first place.
killers. Yeah. She'll be the best.
So there you go. So I was asking her, and she was like, I was asking her about family, and she's like, yeah, honestly, like I've thought about it a little bit, and she's like, for me, this is what she said. For me personally, I don't think, raising a family in that way is in the cards for me. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? You seem very smart, and I actually understand why you have that feeling. Yeah. She's like, she has dreams of like doing stuff with space and like neuroscience, and not just saying she's interested in it, but actually breaking it down, and me sitting across from her feeling like I'm a dumbass. I like marketing and sales. So you could do the big stuff with space and neuroscience. That shit's probably out of my pay grade. But I heard that and I was like, yeah, completely. This makes sense. I understand why you want to focus on your career. But the average woman, for some reason,
no, it is, yeah,
it's been shifted away from family. I'm a
or
dude.
in community in general.
I'm a dude. I can't wait to have a family. And this is another thing we're talking about. My brother made a good point about this. He was talking to some people do like TikTok live stream debates, whatever, where they'll have like a viewer get on and do like
I'm sure that's productive.
Anyways, he was talking about the same thing we're talking about, the birth rate, women aren't having kids anymore. And then my brother gets on, he's like, okay, true, but like how many kids do you have? And then he's like, what do you mean? He's like, you're worried about this issue. Maybe have you thought about the fact that you are not, man enough to have a woman, even in this rough economy, even if the tough society, to attract a woman to reproduce with? And then he's like, yeah, I guess good point. And that's completely right now where my head's at. It's like, I see this as an issue. What is like less than, obviously we're below replacement.
Yeah, below.
For children per woman. Yeah. And
for family too. It's not just a family. Like takes a village.
And mathematically, you can think about this mathematically too, which is what really like opened my eyes to it. If we think what's happening is that women are just having less kids. They don't want as many kids as they did before. And that's obviously partially true. Yeah. I think the main thing that's actually happening, why the number has dropped so dramatically, is not necessarily that women are having less kids, they're just having them later. Because if you take
it's both, yeah.
Just look at the math. If you take every woman from 20 to 80. Okay,
no, there's data on this. For sure.
Yeah. 20 to 80 years old, and you see, okay, let's go back to the 1950s. 20 to 80 years old, the average was 2.5, 3 kids per woman.
They're starting at 20.
If you take that 20 and you say, okay, now women from 20 to 30, instead of having 2 to 3 like they did back then, have 0. Yeah. That average, just do the math.
There's no fertility after drops. Like after 30, you're not even that fertile anymore.
I mean, but let's say even that's another side of it.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
Even if let's say now all women at 30 have kids, that's your population crisis. That's your rebirth crisis.
It's just slowing down as well.
100%. So that's the issue. The issue isn't necessarily women need to have more kids. It's that we started having kids not too long ago at 20, 22 years old. Yeah. My parents got married when they were 21, 22. Yeah. So that's our age right now. And I don't know how close you are, but I still got to get there. Yeah. Right now, basically what I'm trying to say is that where my head's at, I have no restrictions on having kids besides a wife and money. Once I get those, I'm having kids right away.
Screw money.
Screw money?
People look at this is the other thing.
Here's a fun disagreement that we have too.
Really? See, I would like to have money and everything, but again, okay. I say not even money. That's hypocritical because I do want money. But if you look at what things were like when people life is so easy. Like in terms of just raw, like acquire food, eat food, sleep in bed, don't die to predator.
Yes.
Life could not possibly be easier ever.
This is assuming you don't have a WF government who makes everything unaffordable.
No, soon we're
This is assuming that the average house of a price is now $1.5 million. That's why I say money.
I feel like I think there's always a way. Like if people were having 8 kids in like a cabin in the woods and they're farming their own foods, like, oh yeah, harvest wasn't good this year, you 3 are dying. Yes. Like, sorry guys. Like, come on, you don't need money. Like, okay, you do need money in like the modern kind of value system we have now.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's so much emphasis, because my girlfriend tells me that all the time. And
Yeah.
it's good that she does, because guys don't think like this. Guys are just like, yeah, me, kids. But she's like, no, Justin, like, we should be financially secure. We should do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, all that. We should have kids right now. We'll figure it out. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's like,
What do you make of the cost of the house then? Because if you want kids, I'm assuming you want to house your kids. You need to be able to afford a house.
yeah, it's a problem. I mean,
what is it called? Like shelter. You're talking about back then the bare minimum of a cabin. You had the cabin. Nowadays your cabin costs $1.5 million.
That's the problem. So you can move. I think the other thing is like, Toronto's cooked for housing, but you could live in like a place and have kids.
I mean,
you don't want to.
Even if you go up north though, even like small town where I'm at, it's still getting up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a city thing. I mean, obviously
overall,
cities are
but,
more
like,
impacted.
I just feel like there's always a way.
Yeah.
There's always a way. But at the same time, it's like, there's always a way, but that's not how you want to live.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not how you want to live. You want to raise your kids in a good neighborhood, safe, with freedom, and you know what I mean? So, and you don't want them in a bad school. Like, so there's obviously things you have to consider. It's just sad that, and I know, you know what, that's the thing. I won't say that you need, I don't have a problem with people saying, oh, I need the money, whatever. I'm not trying to disagree that you don't need the money. I just think it's sad because that shouldn't be the case. That's more my belief. I don't think it shouldn't be like that. Like, it shouldn't be that you need so much money. Like, we need to figure out a way.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's what I correct my statement.
I
just don't think it shouldn't have to be this big thing where you're making all this money, because that's sad. Like, it's changed my life.
Yeah.
Realizing that I have to make all that money now to have kids and to live a life that is acceptable to my girlfriend and acceptable to my children, because things are just changing, and you know, you got to be ready to move. You got to be ready to set this up. You have to be ready to live in a nice neighborhood, because some neighborhoods are so destroyed and just degenerate and filthy that you can't live there anymore. And some people do, and it's unfortunate. I got to lock in. You know, I've been given every opportunity. I have to make good on it, and you can't just, I can't just, be a, plumber and have a stay-at-home wife and do that. And, because I would love to have
that would be
the opportunity to have a mother in the home, and people don't like that. People are like, I'm misogynist. And it's like, no, like, and that's the other problem that I have.
Yeah.
Why? And I used to think this. It's so embarrassing, but I used to think, I used to not look down, but I used to not respect stay-at-home mothers the way I do now.
Me too.
And it's like, because I have a working mom. My mom, you have a stay-at-home mom.
Exactly.
How lucky are you? The strong. And I have a smart, educated, working mom who understands the world. And it's like, after meeting my girlfriend, she is a stay-at-home mom. And I almost want to say like a homemaker. I feel like stay-at-home moms, like, it's degrading. You're a mom who just stays at home. It's like, no, you're home. You're making
homemaker.
the home. I prefer that term so much more.
That's a nice term.
And it's like, I've realized, like, wow, you are the way you are, I think, because of you had a homemaker mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important thing, and I think that's beautiful for community. Again, if you want to work, but to have that option where your significant other and your wife can do what she wants. Work if you want. Don't work if you want. Whatever. I don't care.
So
don't worry about the bills. Who cares? That's so awful.
Yeah.
Why do you have to worry about preserving your culture, teaching your children their values, taking care of them, making sure they don't die, making sure the house is in order, making sure your community is in order, because you have to care about the people around you.
Making sure you can,
Like, ideally, you'd be worried about the people around you because you were part of a community, and so it's so unfair that women have to worry about all this.
Plus tax.
You gotta pay the tax. You gotta do the job. I have a boss. How do you have a boss?
Yeah.
How do you have a boss? You're a sovereign individual.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, men, you have a boss. Suck it up.
Yeah.
Suck it up. You gotta do. You get to go home. You get to go home to your beautiful home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life is hard. So
does the idea of your wife having a boss upset you?
The idea of me having a boss upsets me.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having almost said something I shouldn't have said. But like, it's like I serve my family. I want my wife to serve me and my children. I want my children to grow up and, serve me when I'm old.
I'm happy you said that word serve, because it's such a good, Yeah.
I don't think my wife should just serve me. Like, I think people say, oh, my wife should serve me.
Yeah.
I should serve my wife too.
Yes, exactly. Serve each other.
It's a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't just get to F off and do whatever, and then your wife is like a slave.
Yeah.
Like, no, life is hard. It takes two. Like it takes a village to raise a child. It takes sacrifice and vulnerability, and hardship to live a meaningful life. You can't just sit. You have to do the adventure at some point. You have to. It's good to have children. It's good to have, relationships, and good to be vulnerable with someone and understand someone intimately. And I don't know. I just feel like it's all a disservice to modern society when.
So yeah.
And men, suck it up. Suck it up. If you're a man, whatever. We went to war.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to work a job. No, but you know what I mean? Like, things are pretty good for men. But women, I feel like, are just getting the short end of the stick. Like,
I hear
it's
you.
so ass. Like, if I was a woman, it'd be so ass. And everything's attacked. I want to be a mom. That's not very slay. Like, why would you want to be a mom? Say, like, get a girl. Like, these female influencers, because they're all working, that's what they impose their values. When a man's working, he's imposing his values. It's good. Be strong. Stop whining. Get out there. Who cares about your feelings?
Yeah.
Life's tough.
Yeah.
That's unfair to women. I don't think women, they've all their strengths are suited for the patriarchy. People complain about the patriarchy. I agree with that in some way. We have a patriarchy, I think. I don't know if it's the right definition, but it's a man's world. Like, a lot of our systems are masculine.
Yeah.
They're unforgiving.
But
They're exploitative in some ways, collaborative in others, but it's harsh.
And I think that's natural, though.
It's natural.
I think that we've just evolved like that. There are some species that are matriarchies.
Sure.
There are some species where the women, it's a woman's world, or it's a female's world.
For sure.
Other species, our species, I don't want to say unfortunately, but we've evolved that way.
Yeah.
If we try
and our economy is. I don't know if our society, because
I think our society too.
Women raise the children. Women are, but we've turned, because we've put such a focus on economics and GDP and all this. We've kind of taken away some of we've neglected the value that the feminine has. Again, especially in cities. One thing I was thinking about the other day actually is, God is masculine. God is fair, but there's God. Jesus. I'm talking about I'll say God in the Christian sense. God came down, sacrificed himself for us, for his children, right? Died on the cross for his children. God. I think some people think God's all like, oh, in religions, they're like, oh, you're good, and moral, whatever. It's like no. Like, it's sacrifice. It's harsh. It's being honest. It's not all fairy tales and rainbows, and there's punishment. There's the darkness. There's a light, and it's masculine. And it's the same with Father Time. Father Time is harsh. No one ever talks about Father Time in a good light. It's always Father, Father, clock's ticking. Mm-hmm. It's fleeting.
Yeah.
But then you have Mother Nature. And I hear about Mother Nature, maybe God I hear more than Mother Nature, but Mother Nature, especially if you want to I'm an environmentalist in a lot of ways. I am. I used to go camping, and I love the outdoors.
Yeah.
I think it's something worth protecting. But I think that part of, we've taken away, anyway, I'll continue on the Mother Nature thing, but, Mother Nature's, that's what gives life. No one ever talks about Mother Nature when it's a tsunami or like an earthquake. Oh, Mother Nature is punishing us. No, Mother Nature is always used in a context of, bees pollinating flowers and making honey. It's growth. It's green. When you think of Mother Nature, you're not thinking of like a dark cave and stalagmites and stuff. You're thinking of a field with life and vibrancy. Is that the word? I don't know. Like a vibrant, colorful, lovely field where it's the most beautiful. It's giving. It's Mother Nature bears fruit, and it gives, and it provides shelter, at least in the context that we imagine Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Maybe in other cultures it's different, but in ours, the way I grew up, Mother Nature was this loving, nurturing, giving, beautiful idea. And when we live in a city and we degrade Mother Nature, and we don't, you know what I mean? You never hear about Mother Nature as much. We don't go out and you don't appreciate your relationship with nature, which I think is a feminine ish relationship, at least in the way we've interpreted it in Western society. We've interpreted it in Western society.
I think that goes across the globe too. I don't think that's just Western. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know for sure. Like I'm sure the tribes people and the First Nations, whatever. I don't know what they think. Maybe we're just a turtle or something. I don't know. I don't know. They have different stories, and it's so much more complex than I just made it out to be. I was just trolling, but like I think we're so disconnected. I think there's definitely a relationship there. The fact that women we say you don't need a family, you don't need this. Stay-at-home moms. Like why did I think stay-at-home mom? Like what informed that? That's a problem.
So I got a question for you though.
Yeah.
There's a few things I want to get at.
Okay.
When you're talking to your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And you say, oh yeah, you have a homemaker mom, and you're talking about my mom was working.
Yeah.
Do you still not cherish the upbringing you had, the home you had, and the environment you were raised in? Was it a good environment? Was it a rough environment? Because personally, for me, I have a similar belief or a similar thought that you're trying to get at. And my mom, I genuinely feel she was able to do both.
Yeah.
Now you could argue that was very stressful for her, and perhaps as a husband, you don't want your wife to have to be subject to so much stress.
My mom sacrificed everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. She was a mom and a hard-working specialist in medicine. Like, but do I cherish it? Of course I cherish it, and I love the relationship I have with my mom. We're so close, but you grow up fast. I won't go too much more in detail, but you grow up fast.
Yeah.
And I think I'm lucky in a lot of ways. I think I have a relationship with my dad for sure. I talk to him. It's not the relationship that a lot of people have with their dads. It's still good, but it's different. And I think I did okay. I think I think in a lot of ways, I think I got really, really lucky, and it's made me stronger, actually. But, I think my sisters have had it harder. And, I don't know. It's hard. I cherish what I have, and I have no regret. I don't wish it was any other way because of how it turned out. But, I mean, looking at my girlfriend's family, it's like, wow. Like, I need to have this in my life. Like, I have a weird family. In every, in any direction you go in my family, it's weird. And I just don't want that for my kids. I think it can be stressful. Mm-hmm. It worked out well for me, but I know it could not have.
Yeah.
Like if little things were different. Yeah. And a different mom in that same, a different woman in my mom's scenario.
Yes.
Different dad in my dad's scenario, a different relationship between them.
I hear you.
Different, a different kind of personality for me. Oh my God, it could have been disastrous.
I hear
it
you.
is disastrous for a lot of people who have divorced parents or who are in
That's true.
non-traditional family, like nuclear family settings.
And I think that takes a very observant eye to notice that, because the annoying people I hear complain constantly, trying to impose their specific scenario on what would work well for the rest of the world, is they don't do the same. They don't have the same observing eye that you do, and I think that I do in this case as well, because I feel like I'm also in a very similar scenario. I am incredibly grateful for my upbringing. I am very grateful for my parents' relationship. My parents also got divorced. Yeah. Am I going to go around saying that divorce isn't a bad thing? Am I going to go around saying that it's completely okay if you feel trapped
it's a coping mechanism, I think.
Exactly. If you feel trapped in a relationship, you feel completely fine to leave. It's not bad. It worked out for me. I'm not so stupid. Okay. It worked out for me. Exactly. I got lucky because a lot of key variables were in place that I felt that personally, I was able as a kid to weather the storm of my parents getting divorced. My parents were great enough in specific aspects that them getting divorced didn't harm, at least in important ways that you can observe. Maybe there are some effects that I don't even know. But overall, I think that turned out okay. I think my brother turned out okay. I'm not going to go around saying, though, that, it worked out okay. Everyone's speaking against divorce, that, you should absolutely stay in a marriage in a lot of cases. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say that's a bad thing to talk about, because you can look at other situations and
Yeah.
you could analyze your own and be like, what if this wasn't? What if my dad wasn't like this? What if my
Yeah.
mom wasn't
Yeah.
like this?
Yeah.
If my mom wasn't like this, because I mean, this is completely true. I was talking about my mom. She was a fantastic homemaker. She was an incredibly hard worker, and she has a successful career. And if she wasn't, the way she is, I could see how a divorce would have really hurt perhaps my upbringing. But
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
I like the way you put that. If another woman was in my mom's shoes, I could have ended
Yeah,
up
my
pretty
mom, I would have. Like, my mom is
Yeah.
one of a kind. And I don't mean that like, oh, I have the best mom ever.
No, it's
like,
true.
My mom is a killer.
Yeah.
Like, anyone who knows her personally, like, she is a killer.
Yeah.
Like, and she's sacrificed. Like, she gave up everything. Like, there's no, there's no, how would I say? Like, it's work mom, work mom, work mom. That's it. That's her life. Work, be a mom. Work, be a mom.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
And she kills it at both. And like, if anyone else in that scenario could not do it, and she tells people, like, she's a doctor and she has like residents and stuff she talks to, and they're women, and they'll have a kid at home or they'll want to get pregnant. They'll talk to her like, oh, she goes, quit.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to do it. I gave up everything. I gave up everything. I was miserable for years. It was mental torture.
Yeah.
Having 3 kids. Like, she had me when she was in her residency. She was 27. So med school, she went to med school early. She's in a residency. Like, it was hard. Like, they had to, like, my parents took turns looking after me because they were both working. I think my dad was in residency and my mom was in med school. And they weren't making any money. Like, and so it's not easy. And so, like, if it wasn't my parents, I don't know. I don't think I would have. It would have been really tough. I think it would have been really tough.
Yeah.
Something would have failed.
So let's talk about 2 more things.
Okay.
Then we can wrap up.
Sure.
Hopefully I think we have the battery for it.
Sure.
I talked about how my parents got married at 22.
Sure.
You're 22 now. I'm turning 22 in October. So in that spirit that, our parents' generations were getting married at the age we're at now, what do you think is the role of the husband when you're looking at yourself? Because we can talk about the role of the wife, of course, but I think it's more interesting from our own perspective, considering we're going to...
Men should just talk about,
we'll be
I don't
husbands.
like talking about women. I just, like, my whole thing is just, like, elevate women. Like, that's...
that was
I don't like going a little too much. The more in detail you go, it's like...
If I ran for prime minister,
like
you were talking about if you ran for prime minister,
yeah.
I was literally talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. I was like, you know what? I think because I have conservative ideas. I have a traditional sense of what I think Canada could be. But I would like to build my campaign around making feminine hygiene products free. That's a good base because you get a lot of women on your side appealing to that issue.
Yeah.
Is it economically feasible? Maybe not, but we're going to fix so much other that's already destroyed.
You have to take care of your people.
Exactly. Take care of
foreign aid.
If we
Cut foreign aid.
How about we take the Ukraine?
I would be a national feminist. National, like, what?
That's a fantastic campaign.
I would be such a radical,
Yeah.
like, but I don't know what I'd run. Like, what party would you do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's take all the money we're using to fund wars across the world and spend them on tampons instead.
Yeah.
What a great
help your
campaign.
people.
That could work. Fantastic. Anyways, I want to talk about the role of the husband.
Okay. Yeah.
What is a man's job in a family? Obviously, we have duties to your kids, but specifically in this case, I want to talk about a man's duties to his wife, to his woman. What does that consist of? Because we both have relationship experience, and your role as a boyfriend is a practice round, less serious, imitation of your role as a husband.
For sure.
And we're trying to figure things out. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Am I giving too much? Am I giving not enough?
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Your role as a husband. Your role as a husband. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to compartmentalize it, like, for the kids and the wife. I'll start with the kids because you can move into the wife. For the kids, you're their protector, but you're also not in the same way that the mom is, because the moms are always just keep them at home, keep them from danger. But the dad, you have to introduce them to danger. The world is a dangerous place.
Yeah.
The world is a chaotic, dangerous, harsh place.
Yeah.
It's life. Life is hard. And you cannot have children just, it's like Peter Pan. You can't, I suffer from this Peter Pan thing. I won't talk about it because it's off topic, but you have to have your children, you have to use your judgment and kind of introduce ideas to your children as they grow up. And you have to find that balance. And it's your job to also, like, in that way, be Superman. Because when a child or anyone, goes out into the world, you need to have, how many times have you done something crazy and your dad's getting you to do it, but he's right there.
Yeah.
He's not holding your hand, but he's right there. And he's saying you might fall, but I'm here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might fall off the thing, you might crash, or you might fail, but I'm here. Whether there's a sports game, he's on the side, or he's, you're trying something new, he's right there.
Yeah.
And that's a balance that the husband has to have, or the dad has to have with his kids, simply put. But then for the family as a whole, like, providing is obvious. I mean, that's not debatable. I mean, I'm sure there's niche scenarios where it's the other way around, but I think, by and large, it's, you have to provide. That's you go out, you go to war, you do your thing, and you come back, and it's providing protection, shelter, safety, everything, emotional and physical and monetary, everything for your children and your family. And to the wife specifically, I mean, life is hard in general, but you have to understand the difficulties, I think, that women go through. Like, women and men are so different, and I think a good husband understands that. Like, I'd try as a boyfriend to understand what my girlfriend's going through. You cannot apply the male solutions to women's problems. Like, my solution is just, okay, who cares? Shut up. Like, whatever. Like, oh, something's wrong. Uh-oh. Oh, well.
Yeah. Like,
you just keep going. Who cares? It doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But women, it's not like that. And for good reason.
Yeah.
The differences are not, it's not a negative thing. Women actually have these problems and worry and are more prone to anxiety and negative emotion, all these things. And that's good. Like, that's not a bad thing. That's just a feminine trait. And men have to understand that and accommodate for that and try to limit it when possible and try to be understanding and try to reassure. And, that's a big thing, I think, emotionally. Because, you can have a safe house with the walls up, protecting you from the bears and the wolves. But, you're the closest predator in proximity to your wife. Once those walls are up, it keeps things out, but it keeps her, keeps things out, but it keeps her in. Yeah. And so she's not feeling, and not that you're a predator. Yeah. But you are the strongest thing there, and in emotional as well, physical. Okay, don't beat your wife. Okay, like, that's pretty whatever. Obvious. But emotionally, you have to be. You have to make sure that you're not a danger emotionally. You have to be, you have to make her feel safe emotionally inside those walls. Yeah.
I like hearing that. Yeah. That's good. That's good. I'm foggy there. Like, because maybe I put too much weight on the physical side once again, because you're in that, you're wearing those blue tinted glasses, looking through it as it's, as the man's world, as if you're not physically at harm, if you're not going to get eaten,
breathing, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it doesn't apply the same. Yeah.
No. And I mean, again, you just,
and I know this, it's just hard to actually apply it.
Oh my God. It's brutal.
Hard to apply it.
It's brutal. Like, I'm a pretty non-emotional person.
Yeah.
And so to deal with some of, and I'm not perfect. I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, enough. Like, I have those where I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be like, no, this is so ridiculous, we're not even going to do this.
I was talking.
There's a balance.
I heard it the other day. I said it to my girlfriend. And it's a very crass way to kind of to break down the push and pull that a relationship is. Yeah. And this guy was saying that women or girlfriends or wives have a subconscious impulse to kick their husbands in the nuts, women have a subconscious impulse to keep beating their men and kicking them in the balls.
For sure.
Men,
I learned that the hard way.
Men have a constant subconscious impulse to tell their women to be quiet or tell their women to shut up, is what the video said. Because
you need both.
You need both, exactly. Because without that control, without women keeping the man in check, he's just going to expand and turn into a beast.
For sure.
But the opposite can happen too. If she's clamping down on him too much, she'll reduce him to a pebble. So this constant
beautiful
pressure is so necessary, but it's such a pain in the ass, and you got to learn to balance it.
I did not know. Like, how are you so fucking annoying?
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, you know, like why are you doing this?
Yeah.
But then, and because you're always, I feel like for me at the beginning, I was too emotional. I was like too like, oh, I'll put up with everything. I'll laugh at everything. But then it neuters you. As a man, like it neuters you because you're like, oh, well. But I've gotten to the point now. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Yeah. I think my girlfriend would agree. Yeah. But it's like, you know, I'm emotional, I'm nurturing, I'm understanding, whatever. But then there's some times where, you know, she'll get in this mood where it's like I'm going to antagonize or be dramatic. I'm like, enough. And you're not mean about it. But you're just like, no, we're not doing this.
I hear you.
And I don't know why girls do it, but it's so true. Like they just come up with shit. They just come up with shit to do. Yeah. And like to make problems out of it and to be moody about.
I hear you.
And listen, I understand that it's a yin and yang, and for all these, you know, annoying things that men and women do, it's because on the flip side, there's an amazing, beautiful trait that comes out of it.
Of course.
You know, men are, you know, a little bit less emotional because they can just go to war. Like, you know what I mean? You might be a little bit, you know, a little bit more harsh or blunt, men generally. Yeah. Because when there's a wolf outside, like a wolf attacking your family, you just gotta, do it.
Deal with it.
You gotta take risks. Because there's nothing ever gets done if you don't take risks. You know what I mean? So it's the same for women.
I hear you.
But yeah, that's so funny that you say that. What did you say? You have to...
The women have a constant impulse to kick their men in the nuts. Yeah, the men have a constant impulse to
stop them from turning into a beast.
Yeah.
But then if they squeeze too much, then they turn into a pebble.
Yeah, 100%.
Bars.
It makes sense. So
it's completely accurate. That was actually... I will
use
not
that.
Absolutely.
No, that's great. That part was mine, fantastically. The first part, the original, the kick in the nuts and the shut up is somebody else's. I thought of Beast Pebble. Fantastic contrast.
It's true.
Anyways, where are we at? I was thinking of, we could go into some more things. I think I'll save that for another day. I want to wrap up just talking about...
Yeah, leave things for next time. Hopefully it was the next time.
I want to wrap up talking about, basically, this is very short... VoV podcast. It's gonna be a rebrand soon, I think. And this has been a wild ride.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So, is the highest? What's it like? Is 3 the most a guest has ever been on?
Yes.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. You're right. You're at the top right now.
Who's it? Me,
you, and Ibrahim are the only 3 peats so far. So far, yeah.
But there's been a lot of doubles.
Maybe 7 to 10 doubles.
Me and Ibrahim were the only triples. What do you and Ibrahim talk about? I don't watch it.
Yeah. What did me and Ibrahim talk about? All sorts of stuff. Business, girls, the street life. It was fun. It was fun. But yeah, no. I started this February 2023. I had no idea where it was going to go, how big it was going to grow.
You killed it.
I think it's been amazing. When I look back at my university experience, obviously I was talking about the education side, it was a little rough.
Well, this is incredible.
I think, I'm happy with how I spend my time personally at UofT. That's what I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I feel much prouder having done this, having done over 100 episodes, having, brought up some important conversations at this school. Got the Canadian flag.
That's incredible, by the way.
That's pretty sick.
I meant to congratulate you on that. That's amazing.
That's gangster.
I know you had a role in that.
100%. Like I like to think I played some role.
I mean, she couldn't have not got it done after talking about it.
There was some behind the scenes stuff too. I can tell you that off camera, which was interesting. So
and you've done such a good job. Like the university, I worry about some of the university stuff and some of the things that are being taught. I know that sounds really egotistical. Oh, I'm such a genius. But there's some things, and I've witnessed it firsthand, where I'm like, I don't think this is what we should be telling the next generation. I don't think this is helpful. I understand the angle, but I don't. There's something wrong going on, and not that the university as a whole is like that, but there's elements, and there's profs, and there's classes, and there's people, and there's student bodies, and everything. But I think you've done an excellent job. Not that I have any authority to tell you how well you did, but you know what I mean? I mean as humbly as possible. You've done such an amazing job of just giving people a voice, and I know you've had people just come on talk. Yeah. And I think that's done. I hope it's done good. I can't imagine it hasn't. Like, it's not like, I see some people who do podcasts or just create content, and it's so radical.
Yeah.
And it's so dumb, and it's just clickbaity, and it's like they have a view and they just want to push it, and they ignore. But everything that I've seen is just honest. Maybe not the people. I'm assuming the people have been honest, but at least from your part, it's just like, come chat, like let's talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. Like we're at a time today, with the I don't know what I'd call it, the exchange of ideas in society is getting a little weird. There's something I'm like, but maybe it's always been like that. But in the universities, and especially we're seeing a lot more like censorshipy type stuff and social shame if you believe something. Like sometimes I say stuff which is so just black and white. I'm like, oh, people aren't gonna like that I'm saying that.
Yeah.
And even if I'm wrong in saying that, I shouldn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Like there's some things where if I said it about white people, actually I'm not gonna go there. See, I'm not gonna go there. Not gonna go there. That is, people aren't ready for that.
I hear you.
But it's just, and you've done such a good job. Like, and I'm honored that you've had me 3 times. Like,
Absolutely.
it's so cool. I'm so like, what's the word? Just appreciative that I've been a part of this, and I hope I've done good. Like I hope that with me being here, some of the things I've said, I really hope. I've actually had a few people message me after, like, oh, I just watched you, thanks. Yeah. You helped me lock in or whatever, and I'm like so honored. And I hope that people who disagree with me or who have different viewpoints, like, reach out to me.
100%.
I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
I'm not coming here some, messiah.
Yeah.
I'm just a dude. I just say what I think. And if you have a different view, or if I've said something that is factually untrue, or that, I say, I don't think there's evidence and you think there's evidence, whatever, send it to me. I'm just a guy. I just want to learn stuff. I'm just in the pursuit of truth. So,
there you go.
I want to be known when I die. I want to be good and true, good and honest. So
absolutely,
feel free to reach out. I'm always available. And, thanks, Carter, for 110 guests, well, maybe not individual, but 110 episodes of just the free flowing of ideas.
Absolutely.
And for young people now, that's so important.
That's a fantastic.
And I'm so happy
message
that I got to be the 3 best episodes.
Absolutely. There you go. There you go. Yeah. I was talking with Simon Kadkov, that was 102, and he was saying he does a little, not little, definitely bigger than this, but he has an account basically that is for study tips at UofT, study methods, goes into psychology, and he has ADHD, and he was like, I was trying to make a resource that I wish I had coming into UofT in first year. And I thought about that, and I was like, that's a good point, because that's kind of similar to what I've been doing here. I think of how I felt in first year with just my beliefs, my opinions, it's stuff that I thought about and wanted to talk about, but thought there's no one around me who A is going to like this or B is going to agree with it. So I'm just going to stay quiet. Now, through doing this podcast, obviously you meet a lot of different people. And when you go and you put yourself out there and you say something that might be a bit on edge, all the people who are feeling that way that I did in first year come out of the woodwork and like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There's other people. Because the university obviously promotes a specific angle, let's say, and it can be a little bit suffocating. But I know for me, the reason, like, I think about it when I post some controversial clips, let's say, let's say a guest disses on the rainbow flag. Okay. I honestly don't think I'm an antagonistic person. I don't feel like an antagonistic person. I don't get a rise out of making other people angry. Like, I genuinely don't. I know you're smiling. You're maybe a little bit different. For me, I don't have that at all. So I ask myself, I'm like, why do I post this content? Like, why, what motivates me? Why do I feel like it's important? I don't just do it for the views or the clicks or whatever. It's because in first year, if there was a podcast account based at this college who was ballsy enough to post something dissing on, not dissing, but just against, let's say, the rainbow flag, or in favor of something more traditional, or speaking views that might be controversial, I would see that as a first year student, be like, oh my goodness, there's something else out there. And when you set the bar at a level that, some other people might not be comfortable as a guest would be. Let's say there's a guest who says something and it's against LGBT. Someone might not be as comfortable being as aggressive or dissing on it as bad, but they might see, oh, this guy is on this podcast. He's a UofT student. He's dissing on the rainbow flag. I'm at least comfortable to now talk about it
You should
a
be able
little
to talk
bit.
about. Yeah, there's some things that we cannot talk about as a society, and that's
100%.
crazy. That's a problem.
So
I think you've done a great job with that. Like seeing, I mean, I hope none of my views are seen as extreme.
You're chilling.
I really hope. I'm sure some people think I'm extreme.
Yeah.
But like, listen, we're all in this together. Like, if you're like a Taliban member living in Afghanistan, you're watching this. Screw you. But if you're just a guy or girl at UofT, you're like, I don't agree with this guy. Okay, go about your life. I'm like, whatever. You are, you know, if war broke out, I'd defend you. You know what I mean? Like I would be on the front lines protecting you.
There you
And
go.
we're all on the same team here, and that's what people are. It seems like people are forgetting, especially with the U.S. still, like Trump, the election. Like guys, we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you know, just talk and love, and that's all we need. You know, yeah. Thank you so much, Carter.
Justin Spears, I appreciate you coming on. 110 episodes
Thank
deep.
you.
We will see what happens. You know, I'm sure we're both going to have very interesting lives. We'll keep in touch. We'll see what happens with this podcast. Hopefully it doesn't completely disappear. I think I got some interesting plans.
We'll talk about it. I want to hear about it.
And absolutely. And I think that, you know, not just long term. Like I think in 2025, what VoV podcast is now, within the next 8 months, there's going to be some big shit happening.
Yeah.
And absolutely. So
I'm looking forward to it.
I have.
It's a shame though that the university is going to lose this.
Well, that's when someone else has to.
Unless, so I don't know.
Has to
I
step
don't wanna
up.
spoil anything. Yeah.
Someone else has to step up.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to be University Center. I can say that.
Yeah.
But definitely, someone else has to take this on. I'm not passing it off to another student.
Yeah.
Mainly because I don't know who I could possibly
Yeah,
trust.
it's hard. Yeah.
And
they're not entitled to it. No one's entitled to it.
there you go. So that's that. Everybody, thank you for watching the VoV
thank
podcast.
you. Thanks for having me. And thank you for listening to me spew my hateful, misogynistic rhetoric.
Yeah. Thank you for watching Justin Spears, 3 episodes.
Thank you.
Part 3, 2025 edition.
Yes, sir.
Like the interview is fantastic, and anyone who's been following along, who's been supporting Voices of Vic, VoV podcast this entire time, I couldn't do it without, you know, getting that positive feedback when I do. And it's been fantastic to not only realize that, you know, other people agree with me. There are those people that exist, guys like Justin, a few others I could name, but I don't want to miss them. And that's about it. VoV is it's been a wild ride. So once again, appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next Sunday. I think we'll see. There might be a break. I don't want to break the streak, so I damn sure hope I see you next Sunday. And that's all. You can follow us on Instagram.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out. That was awesome.